Oh, I cannot see what. Can you press unmute myself? I like don't know how to do the screen situation that you did. Oh, it's this? Okay. You ready? Hello, oh wait, we're still playing. Is it off? Oh, it's muted. Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to GDAC 2025. Round of applause, everyone's here. My name's Emily, this is Sai, and this is GDAC. Here you go.
Thank you so much, Emily. So welcome to GDAC. We are going to do some opening remarks. Oh, if this decides to work. Oh, okay, there we go.
Let's go.
Does this work now? Okay, there we go. So we're going to do some opening remarks with me. My name is Saira Hamid, and I am the creator of GDAC. Most of my friends call me Sai. I think most of you guys call me Sai, so hello. So today I kind of want to talk about like a little bit of the history of GDAC, why I created it. But before that, I would love to thank my lovely co-host, Emily. Can we get a round of applause for them and all the work that they've done to put up on the top? Thank you. Yeah, it's a builder. Teamwork makes the dream work, something, something. But today I just want to get into the mission statement of GDAC. So why did I create GDAC? I couldn't make it to GDC last year, and that made me really mad. So I was like, I'll just bring GDC to UCSC. So yeah, sort of. But the vision actually goes far beyond myself, and I really want GDAC to benefit all of you. So we're going to talk about how. So GDAC is designed to be a UCSC Games-wide practice run for GDC, the annual Game Developers Conference. Who here knows what that is? Okay, majority of you, good. So what is GDC? I'm just gonna go over it anyway. The Game Developers Conference, or GDC, brings the game development community together to exchange ideas, solve problems, and shape the future of the industry across 5 days of education, inspiration, and networking. Attendees include programmers, artists, producers, game designers, audio professionals, and business leaders. And I think you'll find that breakdown of like who's attending GDC is really similar to GDA's breakdown for departments. Here are pictures from GDC in 2024, I believe. These are all of their booths and some of the panels that they were attending. And here are what those speaker talks looked like at GDC. And last of all, here is GDA at GDC in 2024. You can see actually Emily in that last pic over there. So additionally, outside of being a UCSC Games-wide practice run for GDC, GDAC offers a stress-free space to learn how to network and present oneself professionally. So you'll have an opportunity to speak with all of our lovely guest speakers. Unfortunately, Tamara could not make it today. We will miss her dearly, but everyone else is here, and you get to speak with them, as well as all of the other officers and career success for any questions or inquiries you might have about, any of your work. And lastly, GDAC offers low-stakes critique backed by UCSC Career Success, thank you, to help condition students for entering the industry. So later today, you will get to peruse our company booths. There is Magma Gaming, Little Pond Studios, Hornet Games, and Wavelength Studios. And throughout all of these, myself and my lovely coworkers will take a look at your portfolios and resumes and give you as much feedback as we can. So in summary, GDAC exists to give UCSC students a practice run for GDC, grant students networking practice, offer experience and advice for juniors breaking into the industry. So thank you, and I'm going to pass it over to Emily for the GDAC timeline.
Thank you, Sai. My name is Emily Tran. I'm the event coordinator here at GDA. So I'm here to go over GDAC timeline, what's going on today. So here's part 1. So the doors opened at 12:05. Wow, you guys are all here. Congrats on making it. 12:15, we're going to have a convention workshop by Erin. Thank you so much, Erin, over there. At 12:45, yay, a big, oh my gosh. At 12:45, we're going to have panel 1, the AAA panel with all these lovely people right there. 1:55, we're going to transition to roundtables, which is you guys are sitting on roundtables, and we're going to do mini little workshops, and we'll have discussions on resume workshops, networking workshops, production, and GDC networking. At 3 p.m., I'm just going to remind you guys that we have food and snacks, so it'll be out there. And then at 3:05, we're going to start our second panel, the indie panel, with Dominic and Sammy, who are scattered around this room over here. And then at 3:45, we're going to have a portfolio workshop by Kara. Kara, am I saying that right? Kara, thank you so much. And at 4:45, we're going to transition to resume and portfolio reviews. So if you brought a resume or portfolio, we're doing portfolios on this side and resumes on this side. So you can get some help and we'll help you out. So yeah, we have a variety of activities and programming from the Career Success workshops, panels with guest speakers, roundtables, flash resume and portfolio reviews. We have snacks and beverages outside. Please take one of each. Be kind, guys. And we also have screening and game in Dark 308 if you get overwhelmed by this space, because it'd be kind of overwhelming sometimes to be with everyone in this large space. You can go to Dark 308 and we'll be screening the guest speaker talks, and also we'll play some games. So if you want to have some nice community time, feel free to go to Dark 308, 2 floors above us. So yeah, and here's our GDAC speakers again. And time for our convention workshop by Erin. So much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you very much. And wow, I gotta say, like 12:14, we're actually running light. This is amazing. Like this is usually conferences, it's hard to keep on time. And so great job. I'll do my best to keep it on time and not be too late. But yeah, so my name is Erin Bush, and let me go to my slides here. Oh, there's a clicker. Okay, I might just kind of come back and forth. But yeah, actually, I think I might just stand here, and I love being blinded by the lights. It gives me some guidance there, I guess, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm Erin Bush. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a career engagement specialist here at UC Santa Cruz. Just a little bit about me real quick. So my role is a little unique. I work for both Career Success and Basket Engineering. So my role with Career Success is I do a lot of career coaching and career engagement. So counseling, coaching, advising, all that stuff. You can make appointments with me, talk about everything from career exploration, kind of helping you kind of figure out which pathway you want to go to. So many different pathways. You might pivot, and that's totally fine. But anyway, I can talk about that. I can help with resumes, with LinkedIn, with interview prep. Even let's say the time comes where you get that job offer, I can help you kind of evaluate that offer and maybe even negotiate a salary. That's something that I did not know existed when I graduated. I just took the first offer that they gave me, but you can actually negotiate that stuff. So we can help with that. So that's a big part of what I do here at UC Santa Cruz. And then my role at Baskin is I do a lot of more kind of professional development programming for aimed towards computer science, computational media, game design, and everything through the Baskin umbrella, I guess. So I do a lot of workshops that I teach, but then I also do a lot of workshops where I bring industry to come. So that's kind of a fun role as well. But my favorite part is definitely working with students one-on-one. So anyway, before I kind of came here, I spent about 15 years, close to 15 years in the conference industry. I was a conference director, producer. I put together from scratch a lot of high-level conferences for executives from anything from finance to healthcare to alternative energy. So did a lot of professional development conferences for people. So I know the conference industry pretty well. And so that's what I'm here to talk about today, is kind of just how to optimize your experience, how to really kind of get the most out of the conference. Conferences are great, and I will talk about that. So we're going to talk a little bit about why they're important, how to prepare for them, and how to get the most out of them. And if there's time, which there probably will be, I wasn't sure, normally I'll do my workshops and things are about an hour. So it's okay, I got a half an hour. So I don't know if I went light or heavy, but if I went light, we'll have lots of time for Q&A. So anyway, with that, why go to a conference? Why, what's the benefit of going to a conference? And there's a lot of reasons, as you can see here. Number one, and as a conference producer, I'm no, it's all about the content, right? But number one is really networking. It is a great way to, kind of connect with industry, make new connections, maybe even kindle those connections that you already have. Check in on people that you'll see sometimes that you haven't seen for a year or 2 years or whatever, kind of just catch up. It's a great way to really strengthen those industry connections. It's also a really good way to gain insight on industry trends. You're going to be in a place where there's industry leaders. I'm looking around the room right now. So these are your colleagues. These are your peers. These are people that you're going to be seeing at conferences after you graduate. These are people that you're going to be networking with and again, gaining insight from, because it's a place where thought leaders of the industry come together. They share ideas. You can kind of pitch your ideas to other people. You can kind of get validation of oh, this is an idea that I have. This is something that you think will be good. I mean, this is where conferences are where a lot of ideas and a lot of things happen. So it's a good benefit. You can also learn about job opportunities. I mean, that's a great way to find new jobs, to find out about maybe potential path, like maybe pivots, like maybe you're thinking of maybe changing into a different area within the industry. This is a place where you can talk about that and talk to people that are in that space. So it's a really great way to kind of help kind of nurture your career. It also builds your confidence because you're going to get to know people. You're going to get to know a lot more people that are in the industry. You're going to also get sometimes validation on ideas that you have, like, oh yeah, that does make sense, or oh, people do like that, or maybe it's like, okay, well, I got to think about this, do something a little bit differently. That will still actually build your confidence, believe it or not, because it's you're building upon that. It's like scaffolding, right? And so, it's a great way to just, again, have those industry connections to help you build your confidence as well. And I know this sounds kind of corny, but you can meet friends for life, and it's true because you're going to be in a place where you're with like-minded professionals, people that like the same things that you do, people that are doing the same things you do. I mean, your career is your livelihood, as they say, and I think that that's somewhat true. I mean, like I do also say, like, don't let your career define you, but at the same time, I feel like having a career that you really are interested in and really love is that's the best thing you can do. So you're going to be in a room with people that are probably feeling that same way. So those are some of the benefits of attending conferences, and there's plenty more, and you'll learn them. You'll learn them probably today. I'm talking not probably. You'll definitely learn them today because this is a conference. This is a great conference. I'm looking at this room. This is good job. Like you all did a great job with like putting people together, and we have a great timeline. So you'll see firsthand the benefits of attending a conference. So anyway, so this is a quote, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Now, I think opportunity comes from conferences for sure, but that luck that happens also happens from the preparation that you're going to do before that conference. And so I'm going to talk kind of probably the majority of what I'm going to talk about today is that preparation for the conference and like things to do before you attend. First and foremost, I think research the conference. Like there's a lot of things to research about the conference. First and foremost, we're going to review the agenda, and I'm going to probably, let me see how time is. I think I'm going to go to the website and we can kind of do a little research about the GDC conference. We'll look at the agenda, but reviewing the agenda, looking at the things that like the sessions that you want to attend. Sometimes some conferences have like multiple sessions happening at the same time. Like this one we're going to have those roundtables, and you're going to have to choose which roundtables you're going to go to. So having that plan in place, like understanding like the different sessions that are there. And then I think even just like beforehand, like kind of just getting like, reflecting on like, what do you want to learn from the conference? What are some of the takeaways from the session? What are some of the takeaways that you want? Like that can be really, really helpful. And then I think looking up the speakers and the companies. So just kind of getting a little bit of insight about like who's going to be speaking, get a little bit about them, like, understand like where they come, where they're from, when you look at their career trajectory, look them up on LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn is a great way to kind of do a lot of that research, that pre-conference research. Does everybody have a LinkedIn account? Well, okay. I highly recommend it. I know it's social media, and I know, it gets that tag, and it is to some degree, but it's so many other tools. I mean, it's a networking tool. It's a great way to do career research. It's a great way to find jobs. So I definitely recommend LinkedIn. I'm a shameless plug here, but if you don't have a LinkedIn account or you want some help with LinkedIn, make an appointment with me. I'm happy to help you figure it out. So anyway, so researching is a really great and important thing to do before the conference. This is also really important, is to create an elevator pitch. Do y'all know what an elevator pitch is? Like most of us do. So it's basically just a quick synopsis of you, your interests, your career goals, whatever it is that makes you unique. This is your little bit about who you are. And it's kind of one of those things that it's really important. It always changes. It can sometimes change. The more you do it, the easier it is going to be to pivot and change depending on who you're talking to. But you want to definitely have your elevator pitch ready. Also, it's really important to try to keep it under 90 seconds and then practice. And the more you do it, because like sometimes you'll just like in my mind I'll say, oh, I know what my elevator pitch is, and then when you go to talk, you're like, oh, it turns out to be this like canned, like rehearsed thing. And it's like you don't want that. So the more you practice it and the more you do it, the more natural it's going to be. And we're going to have, like as mentioned, we're going to be doing some roundtables later, and this maybe it's a shameless plug as well, but not really. But just for if you want to kind of go more into the detail about the elevator pitch, we're going to be doing that's what my roundtable is going to be about. So it's going to be it's not going to be me talking so much. It's going to be you all like working on your elevator pitch and practicing it. So just a little like kind of preview if you want to attend that. There's a lot of other great ones there too. So anyway, preparation. The other preparation before the conference is engage in social media. So I would follow the conference hashtag, check in the conference website. You know, sometimes they'll have their own LinkedIn, like where they'll have their own LinkedIn. They will have their own LinkedIn, but they'll also have like maybe their own Instagram or Twitter or X or whatever it's called these days. They'll have their own. So follow them if you're on those platforms. I mentioned this already, kind of, but connecting with attendees on LinkedIn, and you know, I think that's you know, it's a great way to kind of just get to know people beforehand, and like maybe, you know, when you meet them at the conference, you can say, oh, hey, good, yeah, we met on LinkedIn, and it's just again a good way to kind of keep in touch with people. And then join any relevant groups or forums, and sometimes like conferences will have like kind of like forums that there'll be conversations beforehand, and like so. Sometimes there can be valuable stuff. I mean, sometimes not so much, but I mean, definitely like engaging on social media is a great first start. And so more preparation. So work on your portfolio, and we're going to be talking, we're going to have a portfolio session a little bit later, but like, you know, have your portfolio ready, because like this might be a time where you can actually show your portfolio to somebody. I would recommend, like, if you're feeling confident and comfortable with your portfolio, have it on a QR code, and like have like kind of a card where you can say like, oh yeah, here, like, you know, here's a QR code to my portfolio, my online portfolio. You can create business cards. That's going old school, but I think business cards are still actually pretty useful. And I've gone through, I mean, I'm on my second box of business cards, and like, you know, I think people still kind of value that, like, oh yeah, you know, it's who they are, you know, like you can like maybe scan the QR code or something like that, and then like lose that tab. So that business card is a way to like kind of keep it in the pocket and like have it hopefully when you get back from the conference. And then dress comfortably and bring layers. So when I say comfortably, I want you to be comfortable with yourself. So I don't want you to be, you know, I want you to have like, you know, dress in like your own style and your own, you know, how you feel comfortable, but also dress comfortably, because you're going to be in that outfit for the whole day, and you're going to be like probably doing a lot of walking and things like that. So definitely dress comfortably. And then layers, like if I had $1 for every time somebody asked, like, for me to turn down, or like, can you get somebody to turn down to turn the AC off, or it's really cold in here. Like, I would probably have enough money to, like, I don't know, cover a couple of TAPS tickets if I you know, if I had $1 for every time someone asked that. So conferences are notoriously a place it's cold. So like, have layers. I can't emphasize that enough. I have my jacket over there, and I probably will be putting it on when I'm done from here. Anyway, so I also remembered, so we're going to talk about at the conference, but I said I was gonna we were gonna check out the GDC website, and let me see if I can do that. Actually, let me see how we were doing on time. Well, actually, we'll go back. If we have time, I'll go back and we'll kind of do like a little bit of a research. We'll look at the website a little bit more. So I think we'll wait. Yeah, thank you. So okay, so when you're actually at the conference, I mentioned that networking is the biggest thing. You know, like that's. It isn't. I mean, I still, as the content person, I think the content is really important too. But networking is, you know, that is why a lot of people go to conferences. So just some networking tips. You know, don't be afraid to approach speakers and other professionals. I mean, because this is like, they're expecting that. Like, you know, like, and you'll see like afterwards, after sessions, people come up and talk to the speakers. I mean, that totally happens, and that's natural. You know, maybe they'll be taken outside, like, because like as the conference producer, they'll be like, all right, let's move outside, the next session's coming on. But, you know, don't be afraid to talk. If there's something that's really interesting that you found interesting, tell them that. They would love to know that, you know, because it takes a lot to like get up on stage and talk about things. And so it's a great way to really just kind of also learn more about the industry. You can have follow-up questions, and, you know, don't be afraid to do that, because that's why speakers are there. So be a good observer and practice active listening when you're talking with people. So like, you know, and that's can sometimes be really hard, because like when I'm talking to people, I'm like, oh, I have this great idea and I want to say that, but you want to wait. You want to be a good listener and kind of take notes to what they're saying. Like, you know, like think about like, okay, so they said this, and that could be something that you follow up with afterwards. And I know that this is like all pretty basic stuff, but it's true. I mean, I think really being a good observer is so important in the networking. And it's also important too, like, I don't have this on the slide, but like, be kind, you know, like, don't try to be the smartest person in the room or the smartest person in the conversation. Be the kindest, because that's people want to talk to people that are kind, you know, and so then you're going to get a good chance of having follow-up conversations, and then in having that person be a solid network connection and a solid friend. And then I think, let me just see something real quick. I'm having, well, I can look it up here. So Yeah, engage in meaningful conversation. Yeah, and again, don't make it all about yourself, because sometimes you'll go to conferences and you'll see the people that are like ready to like, and I said that, bring your business cards, bring your QR code, but you'll see people that are throwing their business cards out right away and they're schmoozing, like they're just making it all about themselves. Try not to be that person, because that doesn't help anybody really. Okay, so then making the most out of the session. So you all are students, so you know how to take notes, and you know how to be good students, right? Because it's kind of like, these sessions are like a place to learn, and sometimes you'll get some of the greatest learning experiences out of conferences. More so, that's it. But obviously, and I skip one, but be on time if you can. I gotta commend you all. Like, everybody was on time. This is great. Like, a lot of times you'll go to conferences and people kind of meander in, and that's okay. Sometimes you do what you gotta do, right? But if you can be on time, because everybody does respect that, and it's helpful, and then you're gonna get more of the lecture. You're gonna get more of the presentation. Take notes and consider asking questions. If there is a Q&A period, that's a great way to help other people maybe feel more comfortable asking questions. And don't be afraid, because sometimes people are like, oh, I don't want to ask that question, but I guarantee you other people have that on their mind, or other people are going to find value in that question that you ask. So don't be afraid at all to do that. And then as you're there, I'm talking about being an active listener, and I'm saying, but also post stuff. But post insights that you've learned. If you do use social media, if you are trying to build your brand and things like that, talking about being at a conference and talking about insight and things that you've learned is a really great way to kind of, again, build that brand. But it's also a great way for you to actually remember the stuff that you're learning, and to get a little bit more meaningful, interactive, or not interactive, but just a way to kind of keep it, have a personal experience to it as well. And then attend social events if there are any. A lot of times there's going to be networking receptions or dinners sometimes, or things like that. Try to find out if there are any extracurriculars, social events and things like that. Attending them, that's where a lot of times you meet that's where you can meet a lot of connections, and again, practice those networking skills. Okay, so then after the conference, it's very important to reflect and act, right? So I know it sounds kind of corny, but a really great practice after that next day, that next morning, maybe just take some notes, review your notes, and then take some post-conference notes. Reflect on what were some of the things that were the most meaningful. What were some things that I learned that I need to start doing, and implement that into your routine, or maybe make a plans for okay, I learned that this is a good tool for me to get to know better at this conference. So make those plans to actually pick up and learn that tool or something. So I think that reflecting and acting it just reiterates, because it's so easy for us to get all these great takeaways, go back to our daily life, and then forget it. This is a way to not to make sure that doesn't happen. Also, blog or post, I should say, any key learning and takeaways that you got from the conference. Again, like I mentioned, building your brand, if that's something that you want to do, which can be helpful professionally, especially kind of in the arts field. If you want to kind of build that brand, blog about it, post about the conference, use the hashtag of the conference, tag people that might have spoke at the conference, or people that you might have met, or people that really influenced you. And then connect with the new contacts that you've met. If you didn't get a chance to connect with them on LinkedIn yet, do that. I think that's just a great way to, keep them in your connection, or keep them in your network. And when you do connect with them, mention that you met at the conference. Mention something that was really interesting that they said in the conversation that you had, and just say that you really liked learning about blah 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 blah. Something. Don't just make a plain connection request, but actually put some personality or meaning to it. So so before I do, actually real quick, if you want the slides, scan the QR code. I think it's gonna take you to Handshake, but that way I'll be able to send you the slides afterwards, and it's kind of like checking in. And then we can use this time. Let's see, how much time do we have? 10 minutes. Okay, so we got 10. See, I was light. I wasn't sure how it was going to go. So we can take some questions. We can also, do we want to show of hands? Should we look at the GDC website real quick and kind of look at I'm seeing, okay, we'll do that. And then how about this too? If you have questions, just shout out, or just raise your hand, and we'll kind of go with there. So Okay, so let me get to, whoops, and that's my contact information. So let's go back to that. If I hit escape, yeah. Okay, there it is. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so this is what's from. Sure.
Oh my, why is that playing? Okay, that's great.
Okay. All right. So I don't. Okay. So this, have you been to the GDC website? Who's planning on attending GDC? Are there? Okay, awesome. Great. Excellent. So you probably have been to the website already. Yeah. Maybe not. It's a good idea to check it out because this is where you're going to be spending your day, right? And maybe days, depends on how long you're going to be there. But this is actually a pretty good website. Like props to GDC for having, like, some websites are more robust than others. I give GDC, and of course, I mean, considering the content, of course, it's going to be a good website. But the about section kind of, gives you like about them. You can kind of find out like about accessibility. Like this is another thing with research too, like learning about the venue and the space and like the map. Because sometimes like things move fast. So you want to like make sure that you understand the layout. Because like if you're going to different sessions that are all over the building, you want to make sure you kind of have a good idea of how you're going to get to and from. But if you go to the conference and expo, I mentioned first right off the bat is, check out the agenda. And I think it's just moving a little slow. Yeah, it's moving really slow. We'll give it a little bit of time. It's probably because it's got so much content, right? Okay, let's try this again. Okay, yeah, I was there and I just didn't scroll down. There's a lot of sessions and it doesn't look like it's in like I'm sure there's probably a way that you can find out the times and things like that. But like, let's say you're looking through all and it looks like it's maybe in alphabetical order. Yeah, I think so. Anyway, so as you look at the different sessions, you can say like, oh, um, where winds meet. This sounds like a really good, like this is a session that I want to check out. So like, this gives you like information, a little bit of a write-up about the presentation. And this is where you look at it and you be like, okay, so they're going to be talking, and actually this is great. They even give you the takeaways that they're going to be doing. No pressure on the speaker. Maybe the speaker actually put that in there, but anyway, so they're giving you the takeaways already. But sometimes you'll want to look at this and be like, okay, well, yeah, Chinese musical instrument sound effects into combat feedback. Like, oh yeah, like that's really something I want to learn more about. Maybe what kind of genre, start asking questions about like what you think might be the content, what you want to get out of the content and things like that. So that's a great way to like kind of get started on that. Let me just go back. Okay, and then, you can also look at like who the speakers are going to be. So let's just go to another session here. So we'll click on this one. I'm just randomly clicking. There's no method to this. So this shows who the speaker is. So you can kind of get a little bit, usually they'll have like information about them. So yeah, this tells you about David. They're an artist, and you can see like where they work. You can also go to their LinkedIn. And I noticed like I checked this out last night. So if you go to this LinkedIn, this actually is like just share on LinkedIn. This isn't my computer, so I can't like actually go to LinkedIn and go to my like I'd have to sign on and I don't want to do that. So anyway, like if you like I mentioned to you before, like if you do want to get a little bit of prep and like if you want to do some research and you want some help with that research before the conference, make an appointment with me. I'm happy to kind of show you how to do this on LinkedIn as well. But you can check them out and get a little bit more information, get information about where they're working and the company that they work for, the organization. And then let's just go back to the main page. So that's the agenda. Any questions about the agenda or anything so far? Any hands? Nope. I did choose to stand in the blinding light, so I can't really speak out if you have some questions. Okay, but then let's go back to the main GDC website. So the other thing too, and this can be sometimes beneficial, is and their site's moving really slow. Well, we can go to the exhibit because I want to talk about the exhibit hall because and I'm sure that this is a huge exhibit hall. I think there's a lot of vendors. They call them, but it's basically companies that are coming to advertise their product, their service, whatever. That can actually be a pretty beneficial thing to do as well, especially like as you are job searching. I know that the people that are there are not recruiters and they're usually, I mean, sometimes, I don't know why it's not working. Okay. Yeah, maybe so. It's not, okay, so we'll look at the list. So these are the sponsors and exhibitors. So these are all the exhibitors that are going to be there. So let's say you're really interested in, oops. Okay, I'll just scroll down this way. Nothing is working. Okay, here we go. Yeah, like I said, tons of vendors. So like, let's say you're looking at this and you're like, yeah, I'm actually really interested in like ARM is I don't think ARM. We'll say that Arcane is an interesting company, and then you're curious about what they maybe do, and you can kind of just go straight to their website. But let's say you actually wanted to like this was a studio that was really interesting to you. You're going to be able to meet people that actually are working there. Again, they're selling something, so they're going to be like more business development people. But it's a great way to find out about what it is important about this studio, like what they're trying. Because like the salespeople are like really people that know the product, right? And so you can kind of ask them questions, get a little bit of kind of a strategy behind like, okay, well, this is really important to this company. So I should probably maybe start thinking about these things. And this is just, I'm thinking like when you're looking for jobs. So that could be another thing too, is kind of looking at who the exhibitors are going to be. And then again, this is like, we'll go back to the main site, maybe see how it does and how are we on time? 1 minute, is that right? I have 1 more minute. Well, I think maybe what we'll do if you want to check out the GDC site in a little bit more detail, feel free to make an appointment with me. I think it's pretty self-explanatory though. And so with that, I appreciate your time and I hope that you got some good takeaways from this and practice them here because this is a great conference. And so this is, practice those networking skills. So anyway, thank you very much, everybody. And I will pass it on to Sai. I don't know why I'm clapping for myself. I think it's just people start clapping. I'm like, oh, yeah, wait. I'm clapping for Sai. It's a great job. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erin. Can we please get another round of applause? Lovely. So we are now going to move on to our AAA panel. We're going to start with Will Kerslake from Crystal Dynamics. Pronounce it correctly. And then we will have Nick Valencia from Riot Games and David McKenna from Riot Games. They are in this call right now, and Ethan, if you can actually co-host them, this is the time. And after we're done with some logistics check, am I right? We're gonna have Will Kerslake come and speak.
Oh, that's what that's doing. And then and hasn't unmuting this?
Or not yet.
Oh, not yet?
But can you move them on? Can you just turn off the thing where they can't unmute?
Sure.
While we're waiting to set up, feel free to just talk to each other. We're at a little conference. It's all about talking and making connections. So talk to the person next to you, ask about their day, do whatever. I don't know, find out their
Don't know.
favorite. Finish communication for the day.
Not right now.
Oh, hey. Yeah, sure. No worries. So founded in the Bay Area in 1992, shipped a whole bunch of games since then. We're most known for two franchises you probably have heard of. So Legacy of Kain, particularly the Soul Reaver games, and more recently, obviously, Tomb Raider. So Crystal, just as a note, we were not the original creators of Tomb Raider. In 96, that was core design back in England. But in roughly the mid 2000s, the franchise was shifted over. And so the last six games have all been coming from Crystal, and obviously the Survivor series, which is the ones that you're probably most likely familiar with of 2013 Tomb Raider reboot, and then Rise of the Tomb Raider and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. So I'm a game director. What is that? Titles get a little bit weird in game development as you get up. You are creative director and game director and a lot of other different pieces. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what that is for us at Crystal. So games, particularly AAA games, they are massive, complex beasts, and every studio adapts their team and structure to the needs of that particular project, the skills of that particular team. So in our case, we have a senior leadership team. It's composed of an exec producer, and then you have myself as game director, along with a tech, art, and production directors. So then connected underneath that, the team is broken into a series of focused pillars. There's a content group, a gameplay group, core tech, central art, and a services group. Leadership team cares about what all these groups are doing, but each of us kind of have areas where we also focus more than others. So as game director, the two that I'm most directly involved in are the content and gameplay pillars. Inside of this, these groups are then further segmented into a bunch of multidisciplinary strike teams that are attacking things that we need to get done for the game. So you might have a strike team that's working on enemy AI concepts. You'd have a strike team that's working on quests, levels, all sorts of different content. All of those are big pods of artists, designers, animators, whatever happens to be needed for that particular piece of content. For us, there's a lot more engineers over in gameplay. A lot of the stuff that's happening in content tends to be just designers, artists, animators working together. So that's a sense of sort of our structure, but what do I do? Like, what's a game director actually do? And so the short answer is mostly I build a lot of PowerPoints and wave my hands around in Zoom calls, which is really exciting. But the actual useful answer is a combination of these things. So it's establishing direction, team leadership, project management, advocacy, and team development. And so, frankly, these responsibilities aren't that different from when you're doing a student project or an indie game. The biggest difference is the number of people that you have to steer at the same direction. You might have found that it's kind of difficult to get three people to agree to do one thing. It gets harder at 10. It gets exponentially harder at 100 and 200 to get everybody pointed in the same direction, trying to build the same game at the same time. And so the biggest piece that changes as these games get bigger is massive increased pressure because you have to make decisions that are rapid, clear, and accurate for your team. So on the establishing direction front, one of the great tools for us is game pillars. Here's an example of a game pillar that was used for Tomb Raider 2013. That was a reboot for Tomb Raider. If you haven't seen it down there in that little corner, our studio lead at the time and creative studio director do a whole talk on building of this particular Tomb Raider. If you're interested in way more details, because it's like an hour and a half than I can get to in 10 minutes. But the way that we work with this is that the tip of the spear is a lens that we use for everything in the game. So no matter what you were going to do and work on, it needed to feel like it is helping to deliver that sense of survival action. These words are meticulously worked on. We refine them throughout the entire game. It is incredibly important to get them right. If this had just been survival, if you think about what it means to you when you just hear survival, you might think Bear Grylls. You might think of games like Rust or Long Dark or Valheim. None of those are what Tomb Raider was. Right? Survival action suddenly shifts that in your brain to something that's a little bit more cinematic, a little bit more film-like. You start moving into things like the first Rambo, something like The Descent, and you can start to see how that's a lot closer to what that game actually was and the flavor that it had. So each pillar underneath this then represents a specific flavor of how our core gameplay is going to, of traversal and combat and puzzles, is going to be filtered in such a way that it helps drive that tip of the spear. So there's lots of different forms of combat. You can have very militaristic combat. You can have very sort of action fun oriented combat. If you're going to do something about survival action, it needed to be desperate. And if for those of you who play that game, you can get that feeling across all the pieces. How you animate the character wants to feel desperate within the combat spaces. What mechanics you have need to feel desperate within the combat spaces, so it all feels like a survival action game at the end of the day. So when it comes to leadership, that can often be assumed as being the idea guy. In reality, it looks more like that nightmare, which is my blurred Outlook calendar for an average week. So what is expected is, from my years of doing this, I've been doing this a long time, I bring a lot of ideas to the table. The bigger piece of leadership as a game director is actually being a sorting hat, right? We've hopefully hired a whole bunch of good people that have great ideas themselves. It is my job to pull the best things that we can possibly get out of the team, figure out which of those fits that tip of the spear and can be used to drive it so that with the final player's experience is a cohesive whole. The biggest tool here as an individual is keeping your ego in check, right? It's very easy to get attached to ideas you personally came up with. You may find this on your own projects when you're working together. And it's vital that you are just as critical at analyzing the things that you've come up with as what the rest of the team has. So one of the most brutal parts here is project management. So your team will always have more ideas and cool things than you ever have the time to actually create. And so a key part of this is relentlessly stack ranking these features against one another, because making sure that your team is working on the right things that both you can finish and serve the game the best as possible. And I want to reiterate here that, and this is going to make my tech director really happy, stack ranking and not priorities. The thing with priorities is that people tend to prioritize half the things as priority one. And you will start to find that we even do stupid things at studios. We start creating priority 0 as a way to get more things that are below the priority 1 things that we care about more. Stack ranking is explicitly saying we do this, then this, then this, then this. And you will find your cutoff point as a result of that. And you're a lot more honest when you stack rank than when you prioritize. Priorities are a quick way to tell you that you can do everything that you want to do and you can't. Oh, I'm going to go to the next slide. There you go. I'm going to go to the next slide. Let's see if I can get those notes back. Uh-oh. Not my laptop. And we're good. Okay. Yeah. Nope, wait, that jumped way too many slides forward. Here we go. Cool. Advocacy. Yes. All right. As a game director, you are a three-way advocate for your game. So you are constantly communicating with the team to advocate, providing constructive feedback, trying to make sure that you're keeping that direction going. Additionally, particularly in AAA, you're also pitching upwards, right? To your company leadership, to your publishers, trying to constantly make sure that you can make the case for why your game makes sense within the market, who it's going to reach, who's going to be excited by it. As a result, trying to justify the budget that you're asking for and proving that you can sell enough copies that that budget actually works. And then eventually your third piece of advocacy is going to be with the outside world. Sorry, talking to the public, talking at conferences, talking to trade shows or interviews to try to show your game in the best light. I wish I had a quick thing to make this easy for you, like a nice tip for it. It's just doing it a lot. Unfortunately, experience is the only thing that really makes that better. Constantly communicating with your teams when you're doing projects here and communicating outwards and upwards later is really the only way to get better at that I'm aware of. And so the last one here is team development. And so this is everything from establishing like productive and collaborative work environment within your team, mentoring leads, selecting the right people to be part of a project. The one thing that we've adopted internally that I think has been always incredibly helpful for us is the idea of color-coded feedback. Particularly helpful in a space where Crystal is now both a 3-location studio. So we have a studio in San Mateo, we have one up in Bellevue, we have one in Austin, but we are also almost all remote work. And we work with multiple studios externally because that's the way that most big games are made now, is that it's all of us plus lots of external code developers all across the world in lots of different time zones. The lack of human direct interaction makes it a lot harder to provide people feedback because you don't get all the social cues that you get when two people are sitting in a room together. And so color-coded feedback has been incredibly helpful. Frankly, it would be helpful even when you're personally next to each other. And so for every piece of feedback, we give 4 different colors. So red feedback is things, especially particularly coming from directors, that has to be addressed right away. This is not a valid prototype until you've done X, Y, and Z. And then we give things that are purple feedback. Purple feedback is we can get past prototype stage, but you're not a first functional play testable stage until you do this. So it becomes this is a problem. It's not a problem you have to solve right now. And the next one becomes blue feedback. Blue feedback at director level is incredibly useful. It's me saying, we're talking. This isn't a command. Like one thing that happens in a lot of places when you go to a studio, you see somebody with a big title and you start to think everything that they say is a task that I'm supposed to do. And sometimes, like, I'm just another game developer. I've just been doing it for a lot longer than any of you have. We just want to talk about stuff. And so blue feedback is a way for us to say, hey, this thing that I'm talking about, we're just chatting. We're coming up with ideas. Let's come up with 15 ideas. Don't listen to mine. Just come up with 15 ideas. You can use them or not use them. It's okay. And then finally, green one being a one that we use to make sure that we're saying nice things periodically. It's really easy when you have big projects to focus on all the things that don't work. And so always knowing to provide green feedback is useful for telling people stuff. Last three things, kind of getting towards the end. So that's like a 30,000 foot view of what it's like to be a game director. If we got 10 minutes, it's pretty a little close. I know that other people in this conference that you guys are having are going to talk a lot about entering the industry, but as part of that team development piece, I wanted to leave you with three things that I think are super important. So the first one, every job description that you will see is a laundry list of bullet points, often made by somebody like me, about the things that I want that person to do. That is everything that they might need to do. I don't expect someone to hit all of those. That will be a unicorn. If we get it, awesome. That's not going to happen. You do not need to match all of those bullet points to apply. I want to reiterate this for whatever reason, it's just a thing. White males will apply no matter what if they match one of them, particularly for women and people of color. You do not have to match every bullet point. Apply anyway. You don't need to stop yourself for whether you're going to get the job. We'll make that choice. Let us make that choice. Don't cut yourself off from an opportunity. So the second thing, learning never stops. A great thing to, at least your professor will appreciate the Glenn Ross reference, even if you won't. My first job at Atari, I was poly-reducing tracks and cars by hand, making 8-bit palettes for color shifting, black and white textures, and hand painting colors of polys in order to get more resolution on N64. All those jobs are dead. Poly reduction is done by machines automatically now, and the advancements in hardware meant the other two tasks just don't exist. You guys are entering a world where there are LLMs and there's ChatGPT and all of the rest of this. What we do every day will change. It constantly changes and it evolves. You have to constantly be learning. It's just the nature of a tech industry or in games is that this is not the end of learning when you leave college. It is the beginning of learning. There's a ton more to do. And the last piece is longevity. So, like I said, I've been doing this a really long time, slowly approaching 30 years as a game developer. And what I've seen across a lot of studios has been very consistent. Being exceptionally good at one thing will get you in the door. It is the fastest way to get you in the door. If you are the best, have the best portfolio of lighting or art or animation or whatever, that will get you inside. But over time, you often hear them called T-shaped people. Having a broad range of skills that you're constantly trying to develop. Sometimes you'll eventually hear them called cone people. So you have a lot of different depths across a long variety of pieces. Means that you're always employable and you always change as the industry evolves. And the last one is frankly the most important for being this is that, and it's surprised I even have to say it, at the core, we're a collaborative industry. Be someone people want to work with. Like, it's just be a decent person. Since my first job, every single studio that I've worked with started because somebody was at that studio, had worked with me before, and sent me a note and said, hey, do you want to come over here? Like, that's how every job that I have had after my first one worked. And technically kind of my first one too, because it was another student that was there first before me. And so that is just like, you shouldn't have to say to people, hey, be decent people, but it's really important. I just want to reiterate it. So there is one last thing. Thank you. I know we got two other ones here, and I blew a little bit past my time, and I'm sorry about that. The Crystal does have a internship program that we started last year. It is in person. It is in Bellevue, Washington. So I don't know how many of you are up there during summertime, but you can find it from Crystal Dynamics website on the job section. A whole bunch of information on our internship program. We started it last year. We're really excited to have another one this year. So it does exist up there. You can find it on crystaldynamics.com. So, and that's it for me. I think we got other people to go. So, thank you all.
So now, next up, we have Nick Valencia, and I am actually going to pass the slideshow off to. Hello, Nick, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I have my camera on, I think.
There we go. Hello.
Hi.
Oh, that's okay.
Oh, we
Sorry,
tested it. What? That's what happened.
Oh, do you want some- Sorry, not Will. Nick, do you want to say something now?
Wait,
Sorry, I'm
wait,
like here. Okay. Okay, so that works. So sorry.
I think.
Nick, do you want to say something?
Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. Can you hear me?
Oh, no, that's the wrong one.
Yes.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Um, are you able to
Okay.
drive the slideshow on your end?
Yeah. Here. Am I sharing?
Yep. Yes.
You should be. There you go.
Sweet. Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for having me. Um, I'm here to chat a little bit about how I got to Riot. I think specifically, it's funny, Sarah and I chatted about this a little bit because I wanted to make sure that I could be as beneficial as possible. Because I don't work on the actual development side of game making. I work more on the sales side on our esports at Riot Games. So I'm going to chat a bit about how I got to Riot, kind of the steps that I took, and why it's important to have a relationship with different people and build a network. Um, right at the end of the last presentation, you said it perfectly. It's being a decent human can get you really far in life, and it's absolutely true. I live my life by trying to be as friendly as possible and as helpful as possible, and it generally seems to work. So I'll kick off with a quick introduction. I'm Nick Valencia. I work in business development at Riot Games on the global esports team, which means that if you've ever watched Worlds or MSI or more recently Valorant Masters or Champions, I work across all of those events trying to find strategic partnerships that come in. On the one hand, they can be sponsorships. Think of like a traditional logo slap if you watch traditional sports. Otherwise, on the other hand, it can be more intentional, I think. So partners like Cisco or MasterCard, where we're doing really across the board things to make being a player more fun. I was born and raised in California in a tiny, crappy town called Lancaster. If you're from there, I'm sorry. If you've heard of it, I'm sorry. Not much to do except visit a couple of different stores at the mall. To date, I play a lot of games still. I play a lot of Valorant. I play a lot of Rocket League, and most recently, I've been playing a ton of Rivals. I like to say that because it's kind of the only thing I did growing up. I didn't really watch sports. I didn't play a lot of sports. I just liked video games. And I think that's important because at the end of the day, I wasn't good at coding, not good enough at math to really get it, but I knew how to talk to people. And that turns out that there was something to do for people like me. Um, what I do in a nutshell, I love showing these pictures because I think that I have the most fun in existence. Um, this is Lincoln Park at Worlds last year. This is Lil Nas X when we were at the Chase Center. Uh, this is Worlds last year again, which was a great time in the O2 Arena. Watching T1 win was an experience and a half. I've always been a T1 fan, so I cried. I was at the first Champions ever when Loud won, which was great. It looks awesome. Like this picture looks amazing. Um, they came out to a crowd of the production team because we didn't have crowds. It was in the middle of COVID. So the first ever like world scale event for Valorant was just like our camera operators, our producers, me, all of us with masks on and our show blacks clapping, trying to make it feel really good for them. Um, and then I had to put a picture of Timo because he's my favorite champion. And also, it's insane that we stood up a larger than life statue of Timo in a cultural center in South Korea. But the job is a blessing in that I get to travel around and talk to a lot of people and make really cool things happen. But what it boils down to ultimately is doing really unique things with our sponsors that kind of put them out there and make the showcase what makes them special. So this is the trophy for Worlds designed by Tiffany's. If you've ever seen their princess cut like engagement rings for whatever reason, it's a very similar style. inside of an electric G-Wagon for Mercedes-Benz. The idea was that we were supposed to drive this across the country. We didn't end up driving it across the country, unfortunately, but it was a good it was a good idea. When I started, this is what I put a lot of my time into. So those are Red Bull branded cups. When I was at the COVID events, I would run around on stage, making sure, if you look at the bottom left arrow, that that cup was facing the camera at all times. I was a glorified, a glorified cup changer and cup filler. That was kind of it, trying to get as much value for Red Bull as I possibly could. But how I got here and how I got to do what I do started in college, right? I went to Santa Cruz. I went in for game design, right? That was the whole reason I wanted to go to college. Um, I did trigonometry in high school. I did the placement test in math, and I was at Oaks. And after I did the placement test in math, his name was Omayun. He was my counselor. He called me in and he was like, "Hey, bro, you tested so low in math that you would have to be here for 6 years taking classes every summer. And then I'd have to take another class like the end of the 6th year that summer just to get a bachelor's degree in game design." And he was like, "Do you want to do that?" And I was like, I don't got that kind of money. And I'm pretty sure your loans run out like right after that 6th year. So I pivoted really hard. I went to politics. I went to politics for two reasons. My sister did it, and I knew how to read and write much better than I knew how to do math, right? And so that was what my focus was. I went all the way through. I ended up getting a degree in legal studies and politics. Um, and then I took the first job I could get out of college, which was at a place called Standard and Poor's. If you follow the stock market, it's the S&P 500. I went to Denver. I learned how to build some Excel sheets and financial models for investment bankers, and that was that. I hated it. I hated every second. Woke up at 8, went to work, got home at 6. It was a terrible life because I didn't like what I did. I always wanted to make games or at least be in the industry, right? And in college, I watched Worlds every year. I watched when Taipei Assassins won. It was so exciting. I watched a bit of Counter-Strike, right? Ultimately, like this was what I wanted to do. And I had grown up with a mom who always told me to do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And so I tried to figure out how to do that, right? At S&P, I watched a lot of Twitch streams and I spent a lot of time on LinkedIn trying to find people. And the reason that we're sitting on this slide for so long is because I had never cold email or cold called people, but I figured the best thing I could do is try and find somebody in the space who would talk to me about how to get involved. And I would just send cold LinkedIn messages. And I ended up meeting a person who at the time was at CLG. It was a cold LinkedIn message. They were on the sales side, and I had been thinking about moving towards sales. And he gave me the advice to leave S&P, move back to San Francisco-ish, get a tech sales job, and then learn how to do that because fundraising that esports teams were doing, where they were getting like millions of dollars with the promise of making bajillions of dollars. And ultimately, to pay that back, you need a revenue, right? So I quit S&P, got a job. It was terrible. It was 3 months of had never done sales before. I was like the sixth hire. I learned how to cold call and cold email, and I learned how to close a couple of deals there. But boy, I started having panic attacks. I was like, I'm not cut out for this. Turns out I just wasn't cut out for a 10-person company at the time. I went to a different company called Dynamic Signal and really busted my chops there and met somebody who happened to know someone at Riot. And the professional relationship section is a connection between two people in the same general industry of craft that has the potential to be mutually beneficial. My buddy Teddy knew a guy on the competitive ops side at Riot. Turned out he was coming to MS or not MSI, IEM Oakland, and he had said, "I'm happy to meet with you for dinner if you're open to it." I said yes. I took him out to dinner, and what happened after that is kind of the whole reason that I'm here. So we talked about a relationship. A professional network is a group or system of interconnected people who at any given point can support each other's success. The difference, both personal and professional relationships, networks share an exchange of value, right? In the relationship section, it's intangible, right? In the network, it's more tangible, right? It's something that you can actually touch. Meaning that in the relationship, it's more like, maybe I can help you, maybe I can't. We happen to just work together. We're friendly people, we're decent people. We're at least a joy to be around, right? That was me and Teddy. The network section is like, at some point, you'll call on that network to hopefully benefit you, and hopefully you can benefit them, and hopefully you can benefit each other, right? That's the whole point of a network, right? That's how LinkedIn made all of its money. And that's really what happened with Brian. I took him out to dinner. I had nothing to offer the guy, no competitive ops experience, nothing that I could help him with, but I did have $90 in my wallet, and I knew he liked Korean barbecue. So we went out to dinner. We ate for 2 hours. Turned out he happened to know somebody on the business development team at Riot named Greg. Shout out Greg, who helped me through everything. He set up a call. I met Greg. Greg suggested I work another year in tech, quit my job, go to a really small esports team, and then take that experience and pivot it to Riot. Because ultimately, tech sales and sponsorship sales are very, very different. So it's just a matter of, can I demonstrate that the sales ability or acumen that I have can translate to the esports space? So I did that. I went to a small team called Beast Coast, worked there for 3 years as the head of revenue, took us from $0 to over $1 million, jumped into a bunch of different games, including Dota and Valorant. I learned very quickly that I should never be a GM. I built our Valorant team. I think I paid Vanity way too much, and that's what caused such inflation in player salaries. The team ended up going nowhere, and I ended up leaving and coming to Riot off the back of my friend Brian, who told me that the global team was hiring, and I cold emailed my now boss, David, and said, "Hi, really like what you do. Can I pick your brain for 5 minutes?" All that story, right? Is to say, building a relationship starts by saying hi. It's the hardest thing to do. It's the easiest thing to do because we do it every single day, right? Demonstrating some value. That value, especially when you're in college and when you're young, sometimes that value is the promise of future value, right? Because what are you going to do? You're going to go talk to like some senior leader like I did with David. You're going to be more helpful to me than I am to you. So just prove that you're a good person, you're a decent person, and that you got high potential. Make the ask. In my case, it was, can I pick your brain and figure out if I'll be a good fit for the role, right? Developing that relationship takes a lot of time. It's one thing to make a connection. It's entirely different to keep the connection, right? It varies how you do this from person to person. But ultimately, I think it boils down to just be helpful and kind. Check in with people, be nice, be helpful when you can. If you can't be helpful, maybe you know someone who can be, right? Just ultimately try and do what you can to show that it's worthwhile to maintain that relationship with you, right? It's kind of like being friends, but a little different than being friends, right? With friends, the value you bring is you're probably funny and you get along and you bring each other peace. In a professional relationship, it's you're probably funny and kind and you bring each other peace because you don't make the other person's life difficult at work. And what it means to maintain it for me is, rolling calls and sending texts and emails, right? For my friends in the industry now, sometimes it's just catching up, saying hi. For the folks who I'm not really friends with, we're more acquaintances, I just try and reach out when I think that there's something really cool that they're doing, or I think there's something really cool that I'm doing that I'd like to share with them, right? Ultimately, it's a fine dance in making sure that you're not coming off as too eager, but you're also not, it's kind of like dating in that sense, right? You don't want to be too eager. You don't want to be too lax. You want to have just that Goldilocks perfection in maintaining a good relationship, right? And ultimately in the end, right? Once you've done all this and you've gotten to where you want to be, or you think you've gotten to where you want to be, because that can change, pay it forward. There's going to be another person who is just like you or just like me, and they're trying to figure it all out and you want to help them. So I want to be mindful of time. I think I'm just at time, but ultimately, it's a long-winded explanation for how I got to where I am. And I think the one bit of advice that I'd leave everybody with is there's a lot to do in the industry, and it can feel a little weird right now considering everything that's happened across the industry in the winter. But use the time that you have in college to build a network, to meet people, send those messages, send those Hail Marys, ask for coffee chats, and just get to know everybody and figure out where you want to go and what you want to do, because that's probably going to change over time, and learn as much as you can, right? At the end of the day, learning as much as you can and being friendly will get you very far. So looking forward to the Q&A, and I'll pass it back to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Nick. I really appreciate it. And
Yeah.
thank you all for listening to that. Now we're going to move on to David McKenna. So, David, are you able to share screen?
I am. What is up, slugs?
Oh, lovely. Hello, I'll pass it off to you then.
Amazing. We can all see my screen and everything.
Not quite yet. 1 second. I think. Oh, there we go.
Cool. Awesome. Let
Oh, yours.
me get this all situated here. Cool. Um, so hi everyone. My name is David McKenna. I am a university recruiter here at Riot Games. So my job is hiring for the summer internship program. So I'll go through some slides about the internship program. I'll go through some slides about like applying to the internship program, all kind of relevant information. I also have some fun info about Riot sprinkled in here as well. So yeah, starting off, this is kind of like pressing start on your career in the gaming industry. So a little bit about myself. That's me with some fun sunglasses and a tie-dye shirt. My name's David McKenna. I'm a university recruiter. My main responsibilities are hiring for the summer internship program here at Riot and running the program when everyone is here over the summer. I grew up in San Francisco. Shout out to anyone from the Bay Area. I graduated from UCSC in 2016 with a degree in economics and environmental studies. It just goes to show that what you studied in school doesn't necessarily translate into what your career is. Some favorite games of mine. I've been playing League since I was a freshman at UCSC. I play a lot of TFT as well. I love deck builders like Slay the Spire, and I probably have like 700 hours in Civilization 5 and 6. I'm both proud and embarrassed to say that. Cool. So about us. We are Riot Games. We make League, which everyone's probably very familiar with. We also make TFT, Legends of Runeterra, Wild Rift. One little kind of trivia question for you all. In 2021, how many monthly players do you think stepped into the world of Runeterra, meaning played League of Legends, Wild Rift, Teamfight Tactics, or Legends of Runeterra? Any guesses? I don't know if the audience can shout things out.
500.
500. That is quite the guess. Not quite. Let's get one more guess.
3 million.
There was 3 million and there was 6.
3 million and 6 million. If you multiply
No, just 6.
just 6 million, okay. If you multiply that by 30, you are close. We had 180 million monthly players in 2021. That is crazy. It just also goes to show sort of what the scale of our games is and the impact of our games globally. But we do not just make games. There is a funny joke in China that Riot Games is a music company that all makes video games. And that is evidenced by some of the really awesome projects that we've done, like Heartsteel and stuff like that, KDA as well. We have basically an incredible music department at Riot Games, and they put their heart and soul into the music that they make. We have amazing artists too that like to collaborate with them and make these like really cool experiences. But we're known for games, capital G games. Esports, Nick was able to touch on that as well. Esports is a huge part of what we do here at Riot. Music's also huge. And lastly, TV. Arcane Season 2 came out a few months ago. It was awesome. I love Season 1. I love Season 2. And yeah, get ready for, maybe some more stuff like that in the future from us. So a little bit more about Riot. So we have 20 global offices. I believe we have an office on every continent except for Antarctica. We're still holding out for our penguin rioters, but we don't think we'll open up an office there soon. But there are over 4,000 people who work at Riot Games across those 20 global offices. This picture right here is from our Global Riot Conference. So I want to say 5 to 7 years, we gather all of our rioters together in one space to share all the exciting updates and also big milestones that we're hoping to hit in the future. Um, so funny enough about this GRC, I'm somewhere behind this pillar, I think. And this was going to GRC was my like third week working at Riot Games. So I accepted my offer to work at Riot, and then 3 weeks later, I was on a plane to Barcelona to meet all of my coworkers. It was a very overwhelming way to start working at a studio, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Um, and then, yeah, here are some pictures of our headquarters. So, our headquarters are really special. We are here in Los Angeles, in almost in Santa Monica, but not quite. This is the front of our building. We have a lot of on-campus amenities. There's a picture right here of our PC bong. So we have a arcade that can fit, I think, about like 60 people playing at the PCs here. And rioters are encouraged to, whenever they don't have urgent work, to like go to the PC bong if they want to play games with coworkers or friends. It's playing games together is one of the core values of working at Riot, and it's something that I absolutely love as something that I get to do regularly. I am paid to play video games, which I like to brag to friends. But it's also too a great way to bond with your team and make connections with coworkers. And we also are a certified great place to work. The internship program in particular has won a couple of industry awards. Another awesome part about working at Riot is the Riot inclusion groups. So we have groups for all different kinds of folks from all different kinds of backgrounds. My teammate runs the API rig at Riot, which is really awesome, and they put on really fun events, including night markets. So every rig once a year will have basically they'll invite external vendors on site. It could be like food vendors, it could be like fun art, knickknacks, kind of stuff like that. And they get to sell their wares to rioters. It's a fun evening where like rioters just get together, hang out, and get to like experience stuff about other people's cultures, which is really cool. Awesome. So getting more to like student opportunities, applying to the internship program, how to get noticed in the industry. So I've been talking about the summer internship program a lot. This is our class, I believe, of the summer of 2022. This was my first summer working for the internship program. Um, this is one of our biggest classes. Our classes nowadays are a little bit smaller. We had about 30 last year, and we'll have about 20 this year. But one of the really exciting things about the internship program at Riot is that over the 12 weeks that you'll be working there, you'll actually get to meaningfully contribute to the success of our games and to experiences that players get to enjoy. So, in the past, Riot interns have like worked on skin lines, they've worked on new game modes, they've contributed to champion reworks, and they've also worked on R&D projects. R&D projects is a super fun one. We have a lot of really exciting games in development that we can't talk about, and it's actually kind of one of the challenges for the interns who do work on R&D projects is they can't really share their work until after the game is out, but it's still working on. We have a really strong belief that it's kind of a waste of a summer if you're just working on a side project that like would be nice but maybe doesn't directly contribute to the success of the game or the product. We want you working on things that are critical. We want you to get your hands on real problems to solve real problems for players. So yeah, one of the big highlights is that the work that you will do during the internship program will be seen by literally hundreds of millions of players potentially. So yeah. So, what are some of the perks and benefits? It is a paid internship, so we will pay you for the time that you're working here. You also get a fun work from home stipend, and then you also get to you get access to our gifting tool, our internal gifting tool, as well as you get a Riot Point stipend. So, our interns, I believe, they get something like 30,000 RP, 10,000 VP. And a bunch of other currencies as well, like Wildrift cores and things like that. They also get access to the Play Fund, so every rioter gets $35 a month just to spend on anything gaming related. My manager currently is going through a little Pokemon card renaissance right now, and so she's spending her whole Play Fund on Pokemon cards right now. But not only, will there be sort of the monetary side of getting paid for the internship, we also do a lot of like learning and development courses. So we have like lunch and learns. Every intern has a craft mentor, basically someone who's not their manager that's there to just help them get better at their job, get better at their craft. And we also have different kinds of like values courses. So we do like some learning and development stuff about helping folks discover what their values are, what their working values are, what's important for them in a job and things like that. And how they can better connect with folks with different kind of work styles. We also do a good job of fostering community during the internship program. We have our rig guides, basically like leaders from the Riot identity groups present to our interns. We have networking events, and we have some really fun special intern events, like we do this really fun Zoom scavenger hunt where basically everyone has to take like pictures of funny things around their house. Cool. So let's talk about how to get noticed, how to get into the industry, and we'll talk about internship applications. So, who is eligible to work at the Riot Games summer internship program? It's basically students who are currently enrolled in a college, university, or non-degree course from an accredited program, and you must be graduating in 2026. So, basically, that means that we accept like juniors. So next year's internship, it'll be, folks graduating in the class of 2027, or people who are in the earlier years of like a master's or PhD program. The reason we have this graduation requirement is because ideally we are a conversion-based program. So we can't promise that we convert all of our interns to full-time writers, but for the ones who are able to, that is something that we like to do. One of the really awesome things about interning at Riot is you get to understand how things are made at Riot, the working process there at Riot, and we would love to, really for folks that get a jump start at their career interning at Riot to allow them to be full-time writers if that's what they would like, and to join us to keep contributing to the teams that they were interning on. Cool. So applications themselves. On your resume, of course, you're going to want to include relevant work experience, projects, extracurricular activities, and relevant coursework. I really want to highlight projects. So for folks that maybe don't have prior internship experience, the best way that we can get a sense for your like craft and your abilities is to see what kind of projects that you've worked on. Especially folks that have like passion projects. I've seen some people who have applied to our internships before, like develop and ship their own games. I absolutely love to see that. It shows that you really are interested in the gaming industry and you really have a passion for what you're working on. Every single person who applies to an internship at Riot will be asked two questions as they apply. Who or what inspired you to pursue your craft or major? And why are you interested in working here at Riot Games? One huge thing that I want to highlight with the application question responses, please don't use ChatGPT. I literally read thousands of applications and resumes for the internship program every year, and I have literally this year read hundreds and hundreds of ChatGPT responses. It's the same paragraph written slightly differently. So I can immediately tell when someone has used ChatGPT to answer these questions. We really want to hear from you in your own words why you're interested in working here and what your sort of inspiration is behind your craft and major. A generic response is not enough to get you declined from the internship program or your application declined, but it is something where we will prioritize folks that we can is tuned up, that you don't have any spelling errors or that any dead links on your resume. But really, I encourage folks to spend a lot of time thinking about these questions in particular and how they would answer those. Especially with the why are you interested in working at Riot Games, including personal experiences from like playing our games is something that helps a lot, like helps us notice folks that really are engaged with like our games and stuff like that. Another thing that I'll say about applying for the summer internship program at Riot, the number one tip I can give to you, the absolute best tip, and the number one thing that determines who actually goes into interviews and who doesn't, make sure that you apply early. So every year we will post our software engineering internship application on October 1st. Get your application in that day. I'm not joking. Like the number one thing that the data tells us is people who apply earlier are more likely to get the internship. I can't say specifically how many applications we get for like our software engineering internship, but I will say it's in the tens of thousands. And so we only have limited capacity to interview all those folks. And so, we look at these application response questions. We look at your resume to make that determination. But please, if you're interested in interning at Riot, applying early is the best advice that I can give you. And then also as well for non-engineering roles, we will do some sort of portfolio review. So it's really, really important as you are like triple, quadruple checking your resume before sending it into applications. Make sure that if you have anything hyperlinked, that the hyperlink actually goes to your website and that it doesn't pull up like a 404 or anything like that. That is one way that unfortunately that people miss out on the internship program is like a faulty link and we can't find your actual portfolio. That being said, a lot of roles do have like a take-home test element to it. Um, I'm pretty sure you can find what our engineering test is online. I think that has been leaked online. We change the values every year, so you can't just copy paste it. But take some time to like study that stuff, to practice it on your own. So when it comes time to actually doing it for the internship process and the interview process, you're ready to go and you feel confident in your ability to do this. And then we can skip the part about MBA interviews. So, one question I often get from folks who are interested in applying to, internship positions at Riot is, do I need to be good at video games to work at Riot? The answer is no. You don't need to be good at video games, but there's a caveat to that, which is for some positions, being really good at some of our games will help you dramatically in the interview process. So, a great example of that would be, let's say I am hiring for a software engineering intern on League of Legends, and they're going to be working on the gameplay team. If you are a high rank in League of Legends, you understand the mechanics of how the game works really well. And that knowledge will help you, like, once you see the code and start to understand how it's built, your experience and history playing that game in combination with the new knowledge that you're getting, looking at sort of how the sausage is made, can really set you up for success and allow you to talk at a high level about champion design, about engineering mechanics, things like that. So it's not required, but there are times where being really good at our games is helpful and a benefit to folks who are in the interview process. It doesn't need to be our games though. So um, folks who are really good at Dota, if they're interested in playing League of Legends, like that is very relevant and transferable experience. Same thing with like Counter-Strike, if you want to get into Valorant and stuff like that. So you don't need to be good at video games to work at Riot, especially a lot of our artists really like the aesthetic of the games, but maybe aren't like the best at actually mechanically playing. So you don't need to be good at video games to work at Riot, but I promise if you do intern at Riot, you will get better at video games throughout your summer. So important dates. Like I said, October 1st, that is the most important date for our software engineers in the building. For our non-software engineers, looking in November, so starting November 1st, usually the first 2 weeks of November, we start posting a lot of our art roles, our data science roles, our research roles, our production roles, and things like that. The best way to get updates, though, is to follow us on LinkedIn, Riot Games LinkedIn page, as well as Life at Riot on Twitter, or I guess it's X now. And we will post stuff on there leading up to our big posting day, which is October 1st. And then happy to take questions at the end. But yeah, if you want to connect with me, this is a QR code that will pull up my LinkedIn. I do a great job of connecting with everyone, but I will warn you that I have over 9,000 connections on LinkedIn. My mailbox on LinkedIn is a really scary place. So I do not reply to people who reach out to me cold on LinkedIn that often. The best way to get a hold of me if you have questions about like the interview process is to shoot me an email. I do a good job of getting back to everyone. It may take me a little bit of time though. And yeah, that is my presentation. I'm happy to answer like more tactical questions about applying for Riot's internship program, about like resume review, portfolio review, that kind of stuff. I have over 8 years of hiring experience across working in like tech industry mostly, as well as the gaming industry. And yeah, thanks for listening to the presentation.
Thank you so much. So now for the Q&A, the way that this is going to work is, if Will can also come up here, I'm gonna like open the floor for questions. When you raise your hand to ask a question, please tell me who the question is directed to, and then follow up with your question, and I will repeat it here so that we can make sure that the speakers and everyone else in the room can hear it. So I will open up now. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, in the back. Sorry, can you repeat that one more time? Can you repeat that one more time? Yeah. So the question is for David, and it is, if someone is graduating this year, do they still have an opportunity to work as an intern at Riot Games?
Oh, sorry. Can you repeat the first part of that question? I didn't catch the beginning of it.
If someone is graduating this year, or do they still have the opportunity to be an intern at Riot?
So if you're graduating in the year 2025, unfortunately, you are not eligible for the internship program. The having a year between the internship program and graduation is important for us, in that if you intern the same summer that you graduate, we don't have a role to convert you to, and so um, or we don't have the option of having a role to convert you to. So basically, we wouldn't be able to go through that process of hiring you for full time for like 6 months. And really, our internship program we view as like great training for working at Riot full time. So it's one of the challenges, and it's one thing that we have been a lot more firm on this year, is making sure that folks meet our year of graduation requirements. It's an unfortunate kind of thing where, for a lot of folks who are graduating, they want to get like an internship that summer and hopefully convert immediately. And just the way our like headcount planning works, we don't have the ability to convert people immediately. And one of like the most challenging things is, we spend a lot of time and money and energy training up folks, and the last thing we want to do is like train someone up, give them like 12 weeks of like working on mission critical stuff, and then they immediately go over to work at like Blizzard and work on like Blizzard's version of kind of what we're doing. So the conversion element, even though we can't promise it, is something that is important to the program and something that we want to be able to do. So that's why we have that requirement.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
I
What's
have a
up?
follow-up on that one. If I graduate this year
Mhm.
and then I were to enroll for another uh, community college, would I be able to apply again?
Okay, so there's a follow-up question to that last question, which is, if I'm graduating this year and I enroll into community college for another degree, then can I apply to your internship?
Yes, absolutely. So, as long as it truly comes down to like what the year of graduation requirement is. So, next, we've pretty much closed all, I think we actually, yeah, we have closed all of our internship applications for like this upcoming summer. So, unfortunately, no one can apply to our internship right now. If you've already applied, we're going through resume review stuff right now. So, you'll hear back from us soon. But, um, yeah, if you were to graduate and then you were to like sign up for like fall and like spring like community college, make sure you put that on your resume and you have like basically like a transcript or some sort of letter that says that you are actually doing that. We have, unfortunately, some folks will try to skirt by the graduation requirements by saying that they're taking courses towards an associate's or something, but don't have the paperwork to substantiate that. And so just making sure we ask for like a transcript when people apply. If you have like a transcript, but also like a letter of intent that you're going to be like getting another degree somewhere else, that's absolutely works for us. We just want to avoid folks who are just saying that they're doing that so they can get the internship, and it leads into that situation again where like we can't convert someone.
Amazing, thank you. Next question.
In the style or themes of like the game you're trying to do the internship, or is it okay to have more stuff aligned with our own stuff?
Okay, so this other question is specifically for art internships, and it is, does our art portfolio need to contain content that is in the
Yeah, I can't
style of
hear
your...
whoever's not talking into
Oh,
the mic.
hello? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so the question is about art interviews, or sorry, art internships specifically. For the art portfolio that we are submitting to you, does the art style of our work need to be in Riot's art style, or can we display our own style in that portfolio?
So yeah, that's a really good question, and that's also a challenging question to answer sometimes. It is somewhat context dependent on the position. So if we are hiring for things like splash art, so if you look at my background right here, we got this like fun cow like chewing on some hay. This is a good example of like Riot Games splash art. And if you're going to be working on a team that does splash art, we're going to want to see that your style matches our style. For things like 3D artists and stuff like that, we are a little bit more flexible. For things like animation, we're a little bit more flexible, but in general, the closer your art style is to our art style, the easier a connection it will be for a creative hiring manager. So, creative hiring managers, it's like when they're looking at a bunch of portfolios, like they may have like 300 people apply to their roles. And so they want to see the most relevant portfolios. And so folks whose art style is closer to ours, absolutely, I think have a little bit of an advantage because it's easier for the hiring manager to look at that portfolio and say, oh, yes, this looks very similar to our stuff. I think this person can produce art similar to sort of what we do and what people know us for. That being said, you know, especially on like R&D projects or like newer projects and even a lot of our other games, like we're looking at sort of, different like different art styles can contribute to like different areas in ways that maybe like creatives haven't thought of. So we don't like say that like everything has to match ours perfectly. You should do what is like best for you and how you truly want to express yourself. Um, that being said, there is an advantage depending on the role to match our art style. I'm not saying like everyone should just immediately like stop doing what they're interested in and try to like copy our style because they want an intern here. Like truly do what is most expressive for yourself, and it will get noticed by the right people in the right studios.
Yes.
This question is for Will or David.
Mhm.
But if we aren't able to find an internship after we graduate, what kind of route should we be taking to get into the industry and what like experience is needed or what is that process?
Okay, so this question is for both David and Will. So maybe I can have like one of you answer and then the other. So the question is, if we're not able to find an internship, and like we're basically having a hard time getting into the industry, what is the route that you would recommend to getting to where we want to be? Or like, what are the experiences that you recommend we pursue? I think Will is motioning for David to speak first.
Cool. Okay. Like Nick, I don't have a background in the gaming industry. Riot Games is actually the first gaming company that I ever worked for. So, for maybe like non like gameplay engineering and non art roles, getting experience in similar industries is a good way to kind of bridge your experience. So, I have about 8 years of technical recruiting experience. I've worked for a lot of tech companies in the Bay Area, and so I have a lot of experience hiring software engineers, which is like the number one role we pretty much hire for at Riot. So I was able to basically amass experience in different industries. And what got me into Riot was a combination of both my passion for gaming, but also my passion for Riot's games. And so I was actually overqualified for the role that I applied for when I applied to Riot and ended up taking a pay cut to work here because I love Riot so much and I love our game so much. And so that's how I was able to get into the gaming industry personally. But for folks who are starting off, like graduating from school that maybe don't have that experience, there are a couple of routes you can take. You can try to, find your way into maybe more entry level gaming positions or take a risk on like a smaller studio um, uh, uh, or like a esports organization or something like that that will give you adjacent in industry experience. I don't necessarily advocate for this because not everyone has the ability to do this, especially the financial resources to do this. But a lot of small studios do unpaid internships. The smaller the studio, the less likely they are to be able to pay you for your work, but you will get paid an experience, which if you can show that you've shipped a game or worked on a game that shipped directly, that kind of experience is directly translatable. It's also not a route that everyone can take because not everyone has the ability to work for free. Like people got to pay bills and stuff. So if that is something that you can do, even part time, that is something that can help get you that kind of like there's almost like ubiquitous software, across the
Sorry,
industry.
David, you cut out on our end for a split second. Do you mind just
Oh,
repeating the last 10 seconds?
oh yeah. Oh God, that is a
I'm
challenge.
sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I think I was talking about sort of like other experience that you can get that can translate into or like skills that you can learn that are somewhat ubiquitous across gaming. So all games are made in game engines, right? Many studios will ask for either Unreal experience, they'll ask for like Unity experience, they'll ask for maybe Godot experience, but every engine in and of itself has a lot of similar features. And so if you learn how to work in one engine, um, learning a second engine, learning a third engine is really easy. And so I think one thing that you can do as well is try to build up really like rubber meets the road skills, those hard skills like learning Unreal Engine. I was looking at the job description that Will had, and like Unreal experience was like a plus, a nice to have there. Valorant is built in Unreal, right? And so getting good and learning how to navigate your way through something like Unreal could be really, really beneficial and could also give you, you can put that on your resume and people do keyword searches for that stuff all the time. So, um, if gaming is your passion and you want to work in the gaming industry, it may take you a little longer than you anticipate, but you can absolutely make it in. It just may not be exactly in the role that you initially imagined. Um, yeah.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna pass the mic off to Will now.
So it's slightly dependent, like when it comes to actual dev positions. So art, engineering, design, slightly different for each one. In general, like we've only had the internship for program for us for 1 year. So everybody that we pulled in that was a junior, we just pulled it off the street, hoping that they were the right person. For artists, it really comes down entirely to your portfolio. Like, do you have a portfolio that shines, that shows skills that are what we think that we need? That shows generally a range of skills that we think we can adopt you into this style that we need, because it probably isn't how you naturally do things. So continuing to push your portfolio forward. What I would suggest for everybody that's doing this is, once you go for one of those entry level positions, you're no longer competing against like a bar of good. You're competing against whatever other resumes we have. And so a lot of times we'll see a whole bunch of things and it's like, oh, this is clearly what your school assignments were. And everybody else had similar school assignments because they were probably going through similar programs. And so we see a lot of the same thing. And so when you start to like spending the time to build something extra, different, special in any sort of way, that starts to stand out as like, ooh, that's not just what they were told to do. They actually built something on top of that. And that's the same for if you're an engineer and you've built a little tool, little tools, especially since so many people are now either using Unreal or Unity. As an engineer, if you don't want to build like an entire game project on your own, both of those have marketplaces where there's all sorts of tools that people are used to downloading and pulling out. Creating one, like a small useful tool that you can show that you can finish a project. Finishing projects is a big deal. It's really easy to start projects. Finishing is very hard. So showing that you've built a little tool that a lot of people have downloaded, that's a huge win for you. On the design side, it's a little harder. Like you need to do little small projects that you've probably finished in Unreal or Unity or any other free engines. But showing that here's not just the stuff that I did because of school assignments. Here's some other stuff where I took a school assignment and it was fine, we turned it in, but then we did something that took it above and beyond. That will make you stand out against all of the other juniors who are applying for the same role that also have all the same school assignments. Because unfortunately, it really comes down to which one stands out in that list of resumes.
Beautiful, thank you so much. Next question. Yes, Emily, actually, I'll pass the mic off to you.
Hello, this is a question for Nick. You said you would do business development, and I wanted to know what type of skill set do you think is important for a role like yours? I just think business development is really cool, and I feel like, yeah.
It's a good question. It's really just ultimately being able to problem solve. There's kind of a joke in the sales industry that sellers tend to sell things that don't exist, and then the account managers then go and fix that problem. It's kind of true, right? Like I just did a deal for a new game, and we have nothing built, right? Like nothing is built that we are going to do. But I worked with the executive producer, and I was like, I think if you get me money, I'll move everything to make this happen. I was like, okay, So a lot of it is problem solving, right? Like it's just figuring out what will work. A lot of the time, the thing that we offer isn't exactly what people want. It's what gets them into the door, right? Like the viewership we have, the media value we drive, the media value is just like how many hits your logo's getting on our broadcast. It's huge and people love that. But there's really unique things that they want to do and exciting things that they want to make happen. And so it's about like walking a tightrope between what is possible, what isn't possible, and then finding the middle ground where like you do create some extra work, but you're creating extra work that should enhance the experience for the people that you're benefiting. So it's problem solving. And I think the other one that's really important is being able to keep a level head, at least in public. I panic all the time. I was anxious before I jumped onto this call. I probably sounded anxious on the call, right? But the point is, like, you're going to get hit with curveballs, and it's being able to just like take that, absorb it, and maybe you don't respond in that moment, maybe you do, but it's ultimately putting on a good face to make it seem like everything is okay, because if you're calm, any problems make everybody else feel calm, right? So I think those two things are helpful. And then, a lot of people think you need to be super outgoing, super extroverted. That's not really true. I'm very introverted. um, I know how to, talk enough, but like at a certain point, I'm like, all right, and I Irish goodbye my way out of whatever's happening, and go play Marvel Snap on my phone or something. But ultimately, just being friendly, being a problem solver, and being able to take really tough things and make it seem like everything's going to be okay is I think the most beneficial thing to being a business developer.
Thank you. That was really relatable and really cool.
Yeah.
I actually have another question for Nick, which is, where does production end and where does business development begin?
Whew. For 2XKO, when did they pick me up? I started working on 2XKO when it was greenlit for pre-production. So I had the first partnership call with them January of last year. And right? No. When did we do the first Red Bull Club thingy? 2 years ago. So I started working with them. Red Bull was really interested, and we were going to be at Evo, I think. I think it was 2 years ago. And we threw some crazy party where we had a stream. Um, and this was very early on. I think the only thing we had was like Yasuo, Darius, Ari, and Echo were like barely functional. And there was this whole thing that had to happen for like our GAT team to go in and test. So I think production, the minute that production feels like they're gonna launch, that's the minute that I can come in and kind of help drive some kind of partnership, whether it's a brand partnership like the Red Bull one or an actual money paying one.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Next question. So,
I understand you kind of an unconventional route into the role you have, but I was wondering for someone who wants to get into like business development into esports or gaming, like what to start doing like now in college if you know that's the role you want to get into.
okay, yeah, for sure. So this is also for Nick. I don't really know if you heard the question, but I'll just repeat it anyway for everyone else here. So if you know that you're going to be going into business development and you are a college student, what kind of skills or like what you should be doing now to go into that role if you know that's what you want to do?
Um, Learn how to make a deck. It will be the most important thing for you. I hate making decks. I love like the idea, throw on my playlist and then I dive into it. But like being creative like that can be really difficult. So I think learning how to make a deck is really important. And the best advice I can give for that is just, like, go look at really cool PowerPoints or Google Slides and just take ideas from them. That's like how you learn how to make a really good deck, is learn how to do what that deck did. And that's the first one. And the deck is important because that's ultimately when you first get into business development, that's the first thing you're going to do. You're going to make a lot of presentations because you're going to sit in on the meetings for the presentations that you made and you're going to learn how to do the job. The second is learn how to write a good email. Um, a good email, meaning a good professional email that's asking for.
Nick, again, we have
Tend to
cut
get a
out
little
on
too
our end.
verbose in an email.
Sorry.
A good
Hi.
one.
Sorry,
Sorry.
you cut out on our end right after you started talking about emails. Do you mind repeating that a little bit?
Yeah. Learn how to write a good email. The email should be to the point, demonstrating enough value that they'll go, okay, this is going to be worth my time. And also with an ask at the end, right? It's the most important thing you'll do. Most business development is done with cold outreach, so email is a really good one. I was always better at cold calling. There's not a real way to practice cold calling because you got to go like find a number, or I guess you could dial random numbers and figure that out. But I don't advise that one. Cold emailing is probably the easier way. And then I think the other thing that's really helpful is if you're in a student organization or you're not in a student organization, join one and join a role that requires you to reach out to alumni or somehow get funding for something. Because it's one thing to ask someone to grab coffee. It's entirely different to ask someone to give you money, right? And there's a dance that you have to do with giving money. And there's like a whole lot that goes into it. But I think learning how to ask for funding is the most important thing. And there's a lot of unique ways to do that in college, especially if you know you want to do this, join some kind of fundraising role in a student organization or even at like a local business if there's something that you can do to learn how to like just make those harder asks for people. I think that's the most beneficial thing you can do.
Amazing. Thank you.
To spread a little bit of butter on what Nick's talking about, because my first recruiting job was actually, it was half sales, half recruiting. I worked for what's called a staffing agency. So I both needed to reach out to clients to get them to agree to hire my candidates. And I also needed to reach out to candidates to get them interested in the opportunities that I was able to business develop. And one thing I will say about getting into sales, business development in general, is that there are a lot of entry level sales roles. A lot of them suck, and it really does come down to like surviving long enough in a really shitty like environment until you can get enough experience that somewhere else will want to hire you that is nicer to work. So I always joke that like the first recruiting agency I worked for is like a meat grinder where they put in like fresh college graduates and they squeeze out sausage like recruiter sausages. I still have like PTSD from that first job, but I wouldn't be where I am today without it. And so that is just one thing to look out for in business development is like the first 6, 7 months will be one of the most demoralizing experiences likely. But if you can get through that, you have like the resiliency to be successful in sales and business development. It is sales and business development, same with recruiting. It's like 99 doors shut in your face and one open door, and that one open door is what branches out into so many other opportunities. And that's where the big wins come in. So I would say like definitely be resilient, but there's also too a lot of awesome like entry level opportunities in the sales area.
Just one thing, David's absolutely right. Like it's hell. But it's I really liked the hell that I was in when I was cold calling. Like I would get yelled at. The things that people would say to me, it was like gaming. Like if you've ever really been in like an old COD lobby, like the vulgar that comes out. And then what's funny though is in a professional setting, you can kind of just laugh at them. Like this one guy, he just ripped into me. He was like, F you, F this. And I was like, you're having a bad day, aren't we? Made him angrier. It was hilarious, but it made me feel good. But like ultimately, David's right. Like it's hellish, but that hell that you get does develop a lot of resilience because that's ultimately what the job is. The most difficult part of sales, I do think, is learning to not ride the roller coaster. I'm not closing 8-figure deals every single day. In fact, I'm not closing 10 8-figure deals a year. Like I'm putting a lot of work in for people to say, "Meh." And then for one or two people to go, "Okay, this is cool." It's learning how to be okay with a lot of failure.
Beautiful. Thank you guys so much. That was really insightful. We are up on time, unfortunately, for our guest speaker panel. So I do want to extend another thank you to our lovely guest speakers for making the time to come speak here today. Can we please get a round of applause? Okay. So now or did you turn it off? Okay. Okay, now you can hear me. So we're now going to move into the indie panel, which is going to feature Dominic and our very own Sammy from our officer corps. And can we just have like a huge round of applause for Sammy for stepping in last minute? Like she heard today that she's gonna speak. No, we love Sammy. Thank you so much, Sammy. But yeah, so we're gonna get started with Dominic, who is here to talk about his experiences with Heart Machine. So welcome.
Thank you.
Um, are we, you have slides?
You can use these or this.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Dominic Fanaris. I'm a technical designer at Heart Machine, and I'm here to talk to you about what to do after you take the advice of everyone here and get that job you're looking for. And basically, I'm going to go over an introduction to what it's like to actually work in the industry. Going? Oh, there we go. Sorry, there's a slide issue there. Just has, okay, thanks. Yeah, sure. Perfect. Sorry about that. Firstly, an introduction to me. Like I said, I'm Dominic. I'm a UCSC alumni like you guys. I just graduated last year, in fact. I'm a computer science game design major. And for the last 1.5 years, give or take, I've been a technical designer at Heart Machine. You can also see up there, right next to right up there, you can see I'm in about 5 frames of a no-clip documentary. So that's cool, right? You probably know Heart Machine from their debut title, Hyperlight Drifter. It's a bit of an indie classic. They've made a couple games since then, including Solar Ash, and just recently, last week, Hyperlight Breaker, which was a spiritual successor, entered early access. I haven't worked on any of those games though. Instead, I have been a developer on Possessors, which is an atmospheric, action-oriented Metroidvania published by Devolver Digital and is releasing sometime this year. And I'm also working on some other projects. I worked on Sledge last year with there's a couple of my teammates in this room even now. Was a capstone project last year. It's a first-person action platformer that's currently still being developed. It's going to come out in a full release. And I'm also working on Escape from Meat City, which is a roguelike shooter that's in early access right now on Steam. And yeah, so that's me. So now that I've introduced myself, let's talk about my topic today, production cycles. We're going to be going on a tour of a standard Heart Machine production cycle from my own perspective. The idea here is to kind of give you a glimpse at what's going on in the industry and what working in the industry is like once you've actually entered it. Now, I'm not an expert in production, but I've actually experienced what it's like to be a developer on a project firsthand, and I hope that my experience being someone who's not that far ahead of most of you guys in terms of experience makes it so that you relate to this sooner rather than later. Now, if you're familiar with Scrum or Agile development, or even if you were at the earlier production roundtable, you probably might recognize some of these terms. That's the basis that we use for production at Heart Machine, actually. Now, this isn't going to actually talk about getting into the industry, which I know is a bit of a stretch right now, but we had a couple other people that were much more qualified to talk about that than me, so we're just going to pretend that it's actually really easy to get a job right now. So here's that. With that said, let's talk about how we're going to frame our production cycle, which is milestones. And milestones are the biggest way to slice development that I've personally experienced. Obviously, things like pre-production versus production versus post-production, or even just the shipping of a game also are larger cycles of reference, but I haven't been around that long. I've only been around for 1.5 years. Games take a while to make. And a milestone generally only takes between 1 to 3 months of production, so I've experienced plenty of those. Now, milestones usually always have a clear set of content and or system goals, usually laid out by either our production team internally, or in the case of me at Heart Machine, our producer. This is where Devolver Digital comes in. They set out these boundaries for us. And usually they can vary pretty greatly in importance. Can range in things from completing our alpha content build and having an alpha ready to just simple feature passes, like console features or localization support, things like that. Any of that can be justified as a milestone. And milestones generally act as the kind of thing we're always looking towards on the horizon instead of looking at like the end of a game's launch cycle or development. We could just look at a milestone because that's way closer and way less overwhelming to us. So it works pretty well in like putting our work into context. And so in terms of approaching these milestones, the way we do that is through sprints. Now, sprints are how we divide specific work. At the beginning of a sprint, we'll take all the work that we're going to do within the next 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks for us. Usually it can vary between 1 to 4 for agile development, but we do 2. And we take all that work and we assign it at the beginning. And our goal for those next 2 weeks is to just punch out everything that has been assigned for each department. And frequently we keep track of our progress through things like task boards and daily meetings. These there's almost always a time close by for us to check in with people about how we're doing and raise concerns. These are often called scrum meetings in Agile. For us, we call it daily sync, where people say what they worked on the day prior and what they're going to be working on moving forward. And sprints are great because they allow us to kind of plan our workflow, giving us the knowledge of all the tasks that we're doing ahead of time. Lets us actually like figure out the order of when we're going to do those tasks, and makes development just a lot easier and more efficient. And at the end of sprint, we always have an important moment of reflection where we express things that went well and what we could improve. We call this sprint review. And because Agile is all about improving processes, and so by identifying what went well and what we can improve, we give ourselves the tools to make production going forward smoother and more efficient. So for example, if we end a sprint and someone's is a lot way behind on their tasks, we can move forward knowing that we should probably take another look at how we partition work for that department. And having extremely open communication like this between the team is really important because it gives us make sure everyone knows that they have a say in development and that their concerns are going to be able to be heard. And we also have opportunities to shout out each other and, just give a time to spotlight people's work and make sure that people know that their work is being appreciated, which helps greatly with how you feel during development. Now, generally, when we near a milestone, we start to kick into overdrive a bit. It gets a little hectic. We generally split the team up into non-milestone and milestone-specific groups. As an engineer, I'm generally always on these milestone-specific groups, and we're almost always on a separate branch from the rest of the team so that their work doesn't cause enormous issues. We don't want, some big feature that they implement that's not related to our milestone to cause like a million bugs when we're 2 days away from submitting to our publisher. So during this time, playtesting and bug fixing are like paramount. We always have like dedicated time for playtesting. We even have a dedicated meeting just completely dedicated to everyone on the team walking through the game or watching people walk through the game, pointing out bugs, pointing out issues for people to fix. And having that time is really important because having as many eyes as possible on the game at this time is really critical because we want to ship it off to our developer as pristine as possible. And then, so we spend all that time iterating. It usually takes a few iterations before we're satisfied. We call those release candidates. And it can take, we never submit the first release candidate. There's always something we need to fix and go through afterwards. But whenever we're finally satisfied, we'll ship that off. And then that's when we go back to review. So fast forward, usually our publisher will give us professional feedback about a week after we submit our milestone, giving us things that went right, things that went wrong. There's always something of both of those categories. We never get everything right, but yeah, and like sprints, we also have dedicated time to reflect on milestones as well. And we have dedicated time to talk about anything from task prioritization to publisher expectations or resource management. And having that is important so we know what went well in the greater context of a milestone as well, sprints. And in this way, milestones are kind of similar to sprints in that we're doing the same rituals for both of these activities just on different scales. We're doing sprints just take weeks, milestones take months, but we're doing the same preliminary and post-preliminary actions to make sure that things are going smoothly. And I think the idea there is to compartmentalize our work into these cycles that allow us to think about work without being overwhelmed, because it's easy to think about an entire project 18 months down the line and be really scared, but it's a lot easier to just think about my next sprint or my next milestone. And there's a much shorter list of decisions and features and work you have to do to get there. So if this doesn't sound familiar yet, it might soon if you're taking the capstone series. Something I kind of realized when I took CMPM 171 and 72 last year was that the development there mimics this quite well. We used agile development, we used sprints, we used milestones and things. And I think in some twisted irony, the having a job actually prepared me for the class that was supposed to prepare me to have a job. So, but that's a situation for only me, not for everyone. And I know UCSC's games program right now is in a bit of flux, so maybe you won't experience the same thing. But if you do, take it to heart. It's important, and it's actually stuff that will happen in the industry. And it's really important to learn how it works. So once you finally got that job, you know what to do and what to expect, and you're not left guessing. So to wrap up, some takeaways. I think these are the best things I've talked about today. I want to really emphasize is that in the best development, everything is cycles. We always are working towards something new in the short term and the long term. We do cycles of daily meetings and task planning, which contribute to cycles of sprints, which contribute to cycles of milestones, which contribute to cycles of games. And these patterns allow us to think about what we should be working on immediately without getting overwhelmed, which is important because games take a really long time to make. So we're talking years usually, and thousands of hours of manpower for every person in every department, and it can be a lot. The kind of second thing I wanted to highlight here is that reflection is important. Really, 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 really important. Something I definitely like during my capstone took it for granted and didn't really. I would often skip reflection. It's like, oh, we don't need that. But in practice, in industry, we do reflection every step of the way, every aspect of development, whenever we can, from lower sprints to entire milestones that are super important for our game. We're always checking in on how we did and what we could do better. And it really makes the team feel like they're steering the ship in the right direction. I think it helps everyone know that they are always actively changing how they are performing and for the better. Now, also just learning about working in games is really important. It's easy to get caught up in oh God, I got to get a job. Obviously that's more important because, you can't, if you know how to work in games, but you don't actually get into games, that you got nothing to do there. But get a job first, but it's important to know what to expect once you do. I was given some recommended reading I asked my producer at Heart Machine about what she recommended. She recommended a book that actually also got recommended to me by teachers when I was here. I use it as a textbook, which is a playful production process by Richard Lamarcand. It's a pretty good read. And the fact that it's gotten 2 independent recommendations should be a good sign, right? Now, and I think probably the best piece of advice here is that you don't have to be in the industry to take this into practice. I know getting a job really sucks right now, but just because you're not actually working at an indie company or a AAA company doesn't mean that you can't take this stuff and use it. If you're in a club or if you're in a capstone class, if you're at GDA, using these, or even if you're just like coming together with some friends or independently and making a game on your own, using these areas of development, using these like aspects, using agile, using sprints, using reflections, all contributes and is like it works. There's a reason the pros do this stuff because it works. And I think that's important to highlight. Now, before I get out of here, I just wanted to give an opportunity to, if you want to check out the games I'm currently working on, I have a QR code there I set up a little card portal that'll send you to the Steam pages for all three of those. And if you're interested, check it out. And that's all for me. Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Up next, we have Samantha Chang. Thank you so much for coming up here last minute. Really appreciate it. How do you say? Oh, that's up there. So back forward. Okay. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you guys. I'm Sammy. I see some familiar faces. I'm here to talk a little bit about I named it Sammy's Toolbox. It's a short presentation of tips and tricks for confidence and success. And these are just some things that I've kind of accumulated throughout my 2 quarter time here at UCSC, and I wanted to share with you guys. And hopefully this is casual and easygoing. It helps you guys feel confident as you navigate your career and skill set. And I did my best to put these together today. So if there's any scuffs or confusion, please let me know, and I'll try to pause for clarifications and questions. Yeah. So first, for my table of contents, a little bit about me. What can I put on my resume and portfolio? And feedback and advice. And finally, building industry insights. So here's a little bit about me. I'm Sammy. I go by she, they pronouns. I'm currently a senior in the art and game design major at UCSC here. I'm also in GDA. I kind of help out with the mock studio a little bit. And I was previously in the Taiwanese Student Association. And I'm currently running my own kind of company called Puckland Games, where we're making a visual novel copy game. And currently, I recently just started my position at Sunblink Entertainment as a community and marketing intern. And we're currently working on a super fun game called Hello Kitty Island Adventure. So some fun facts about me. I'm an art lover. I drew the one on the top right there. I'm a knickknack collector, and I'm a nostalgia lover. So that's me. So resume and portfolio building, celebrating your achievements. You know, sometimes my friends ask me, like, Sammy, I'm feeling lost. I'm not really sure what I can put in my resume or portfolio. Well, great question. So here's some tips and tricks to help like reassure you and things that can help you kind of start brainstorming what you can put in. So the first one is kind of academic and professional. So this includes class projects. Let's just say you've made a prototype or you've made a polished game, or you have art assets that you created or anything relevant of the sort. This is a great way to show it off. Put it in there. It's very important. Don't downplay your achievements. In addition, if you've participated in any workshops, for example, we host workshops in GDA. So if you've attended the art workshops or writing workshops, one specific example is if you're in the writing workshop and you're doing a world building workshop, then you have experience in world building. And that's something that you can add to your portfolio. In the sense of community contributions, this might look like GD's mock studio. This year we're doing Well Witches. Shout out to Well Witches. Or maybe you've participated in our past games like Malisons and Taco Cat. This is a great way to show off on your portfolio or resume, like, hey, I have a link to a game that's actually playable and it's beautiful and it's polished. And yeah, I think it's something that people should definitely show off. And this is something where you're also actively participating in the meetings, discussions, you're picking up tasks. This is a great way to show that you're a team player. In continuation, we have playtest nights. Playtest nights are engaging and you can show off that you're able to take constructive feedback and make alterations to your project. And finally, I wrote in game jams where you're able to collaboratively collaborate and create something on a tight deadline. And that's something that's definitely very applicable to the industry. And personal. For me, that was starting my own company slash little group called Pufflin Games. Basically, we're just a small team of 6, but we're practicing real industry experience skills that we can put on our portfolios and showcase in a really polished and beautiful way. So kind of what other things can you guys brainstorm? I mean, these are just some things that I thought of, and I think that most of these should be applicable to you guys since you're all here. But just start thinking like, and don't downplay your experiences. Like, hey, you've done all of these amazing things and you should be proud of them. Give yourself a pat on the back really quick. Is any of that confusing so far? How are we feeling? Good? Great, thank you. So my second slide is a little bit about, or my second section is to talk about, how to take advice from others. I feel like oftentimes when you're going through like a lot of YouTube videos or you're at conventions or talks like this, you might be like, wow, I'm so stressed. Like I haven't done any of these. Like, where do I even start? But I want to help break these down and like help you alleviate that stress. The first one is to like reflect on your goals. Like, do you want to go to an indie company, a AAA company, or you're just doing it for your personal project, or you want to start your own personal project? Understanding that that advice might look very different for like applying to what you want to do specifically and like how to like interpret that accordingly. As for the second part, like what parts are useful to me? Whether it's the advice of someone from the industry or a trusted mentor, I always like to think about if this is really similar to the first one. Like, is this appropriate for me? And does this fit my current skill set and like learning stage? Oftentimes, maybe people are giving you too high level of like experience and expertise or a too low level. It's up to you to think, what parts can I take away from this? For me, I always try to take like 1 to 2 things away from talks. When I went to GDC last year, even though I was listening and taking notes, there was just way too much information to process. So I just took 1 or 2 bullets and I wrote them down on a notepad, and you can like stick it up on your monitor and be like, these are the things that I want to focus on. And number 3, trust yourself. Does this apply to my journey? I remember when I was a first year here and I committed to the art and game design, or like I said that I proposed that this is what I wanted it to be for my major. I told a family friend who worked in the industry, and he looked at me and he said, "You're not going to be a good fit for the industry." He said that I wouldn't make it, and this is just not a fun space to be in. But now I'm in my 4th year, and like I faced my challenges and I worked through it, and I'm here now. So I think if I can do it, you guys can do it too. So I guess to wrap up this slide in a sentence, I would just say, trust your instincts and don't be afraid to find your own way. All right, in my last section, building industry insight. So here I kind of just created a group, like a bunch of resources that I personally really like, and I'll just talk through them. And if anyone has any questions, I think this is a great place to ask so I can be more specific. The first one is LinkedIn, which you guys may know, and Erin talked about it pretty briefly, but LinkedIn is a great way to connect with people and talk about like industry or professional things. A lot of people will write blog posts. So for me, I'm interested in becoming like a producer, like long term. And this is a great way for me to see like, hey, what do other producers from, let's just say, I don't know, Riot Games, what are they saying? What are they doing in their daily life? They update those things. You can look through their experiences. And then as for job sites, we have Hitmarker and Hitmarker. And there are a lot of other game specific sites. I think Game Jobs probably also has it. I don't remember off the top of my head. And another really great one is Admir Sadbat's games community. And that's the image that you see in the center, which is really cute. Amir's community is really wonderful. If you go to his website, it talks about hiring visibility, network and support, career planning, and those are just to name a few. And his resources are completely free, and I think most of these that I've listed are. So you should definitely look into them in your free time, and you can let me know if you have anything specific you're looking for, and I can help you look into that. And let me see, what else? In terms of research, I think that YouTube videos are a great start, or like conventions like this. And something else that you can look into are like Riot and Epic Games on their websites. They actually have early career or internship specific blog posts or just things that they highlight for how you should build your portfolio, what it might look like day to day as a blank, like for example, VFX artist, concept artist, game designer. So highly recommend you look into those. And one way to stay into like keep up with the news is game developer. And they just write articles and you can stay in touch. I sometimes read through them, but yeah. And finally, I would highly suggest connecting with others. So look around, look at all these peers. As Erin was saying, these are your first connections. You don't have any connections on LinkedIn yet, like connect with someone here. Whether classmates, clubmates from GDA or other clubs like IGC, or even your friends. And another source of connections could be like the alumni. As you can see, we have a couple of alumni, wonderful alumni that have come to speak here today. You can talk to them and you can ask them about their experiences through LinkedIn or through email, whatever like way you can reach them. And you can even ask for coffee chats. So coffee chats could either be from people like alumni or your classmates, or even just people you find on LinkedIn. I would highly suggest though, if you're requesting a coffee chat through some sort like LinkedIn, for example, and you don't know the person, that you thoughtfully come up with personalized questions and you genuinely want to make a connection. This will like take you a long way, and not just asking them directly, like, hey, can you hire me? Can you get me a job? People really understanding who you are, what your strengths are, that will really help you break in. And so, yeah, that was a brief little slideshow. And I really want to quickly thank Sai and Emily and our authors for hosting this, and thank you for inviting us.
Thank you, Sammy. Thank you so much. So now, like the last panel, we're going to open a Q&A, except this time, I don't have to relay the questions. You guys can ask them directly because both of the speakers here are in person. So, Sammy, you're up for Q&A. Can you sit at the great table? And I'm going to pass the mic off to these two, and you guys can ask questions up front. Like last time, please make sure to specify who your question is directed to before you ask the question.
Hi, I'm Ivy. The question is for Dominic. So 171 and things here, all of your playtesting and stuff, were you doing it? It's internal QA basically. And it sounds like with Devolver, that like they're doing QA for you, you send out releases, like release index and releasing stuff. What would you say the benefits slash negatives of working with external QA? Like positive and negatives of that?
Yeah, I would. Sorry,
I
so.
haven't taught you anything new about it.
Yeah, I mean, to answer the beginning of that question, I think in terms of like positives and negatives, I think having a publisher doing QA is really a positive thing because they have like a lot more manpower and hours. They've got like people that are able to like really like run through the entire game within that week, like multiple people, and like just I mean, like I mentioned in my talk, having as many eyes as possible on the game is like the number one thing you want to do for QA. So just the fact that it's more eyes for a longer time is like a great boon. The only like real negative I would say is that because they're detached from the team, there isn't as much like understanding of sometimes we have to clarify like, oh, these are issues that we already know about, or these are like, oh, maybe this is intended or something. And there's not like they don't have like the knowledge the team has to determine like whether things are working as intended. So I would say that. And yeah, I mean, I think if anything, I've learned that QA is like that's the real deal. Like those guys are heroes. The amount of like stuff they have to like comb through those games in like such a short time, and like the amount of like documentation and like throwing like adding like 300 bugs to our Jira board, and I'm just like, oh my god, how did you do this? Like it's really giving me like a new appreciation for those people because they really like are like it's not just, you're not just being paid to play games. It's like, they know what to do.
Thank you.
Yes, this is for Sammy. I want to ask, so you mentioned earlier that you're looking for, or you're looking for like information about being a producer in the future. In that case, what insights have you gained from that research of like searching through producers on LinkedIn and such, and like what insights could provide for someone else who's also looking potentially to become a producer in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question was like, how do you gain more insight on a producer like role specifically? For me, I kind of start off with AAA because from my perspective, like AAA has a really high quality standard for like what they're looking for. So like, for example, you could just go on, I keep mentioning Riot because it's off the top of my head today, but let's just say you go to Riot's career site page and you look at the job openings that you have. Now I'll go to a senior producer's job description or any company, like you can go to Sega or Nintendo, and I'll look at the qualifications and things that they're looking for when they're hiring these people. And I'll understand that and go, well, oh, how can I shift my daily habits into being closer to this? So whether in GDA, maybe I can ask to pick up tasks that are more relevant to those experiences, or in my own company, that makes it easier. I can set my own tasks, right? That's kind of how I start off. And then you want to make sure that when you're formulating your resumes, you're being considerate of your language and it being similar to the languages that are being used on the sites. Is that helpful? Yeah.
This is also from Sam. So there's been a lot of talk about resumes, and as someone who does a lot more scenes work of like conceptual and design work and some like production and leadership, I was wondering if you had any advice on how to sell that on like fully on a resume.
Yeah, most definitely. So something that this is like not like I'm not I'm not an industry expert or anything, so this is just my personal opinion. But what I think is really great is when you're a concept artist, if you show off your concept work and then talk about what makes you specifically have those ideas. Where does your inspiration come from? What does your mood board look like? What process do you have? Do you iterate on your designs? And communicating those things shortly and effectively will really help a recruiter, in my opinion, decide if they want to hire you or not. So I kind of like to encourage a little bit of like, I love that you have that leadership skills, a little behind the scenes stuff. Like I would recommend that you add that and be like, I'm in conversation with these people, like I'm reading these discussions, and this helps us finalize and create a beautiful concept art. And I think that people really love that when they're looking at portfolios.
So this is a question for Dominic. Regarding production and development cycles, how do you realistically set expectations or goals for sprints and milestones? And if something does exceed scope, how do you deal with that and like be flexible with it or change it?
Yeah, so I'll start with sprints first because that's more my wheelhouse. But the question was, how do you deal with like over scope in terms of sprints and milestones, like setting expectations? And I think that's the part where I had mentioned that reflection is the most important. Reflection is the time to like talk about those things. Whenever there's like someone lagging behind, we always have a chance to be like, what's going on? Like, are we being given too much work, or is it like a issue somewhere else? And being able to be like having that dedicated time to actually talk with people and make sure that everyone's like on the same page allows us to like roll back. So like, oh, maybe it was too much to expect this much work out of a sprint from one person. So let's dial back the work, maybe spread out to other people. And then in terms of expectations for milestones, that's less in my range because usually that's a talk between the publisher and our producer. But usually it's also just about setting expectations. We tend to have a pretty open dialogue with Devolver where we're able to like negotiate things like milestones pretty well when we're like not certain that we're going to meet like the goals laid out. Sometimes it's like, oh, this is like way too much. Like with the time that we have, the manpower we have, we're not going to reach these goals. So let's try to find like a different resolution, and just having like an open dialogue there, I think is the most important thing. And Devolver's like very open with us. Like we frequently communicate with them. So being able to like just know that communication is there, I think really helps.
started as a freshman or you cleared as a freshman to get into the ATM department. As a game designer, how do you feel like you developed with the change of the AGPM department over the years?
Yeah, that's a really great question. The question kind of revolves around like AGPM is shifting right now, and like how do you continue to build up your skills with that happening? I would say look at the best thing that like that class. Like a lot of these classes are requirements. So like look at the class and like analyze and understand like what are the best takeaways I can take from this class. For example, there's one like there's like queer and trans games, and I recognize that this is something very, very special and unique to UCSC, and this is something that people will really enjoy. And I mean, not that you have to take something like you have to like you superficially take something away from every class, but this is just how I interpret it in a positive light. Like this is something that when recruiters or people who are hiring, looking at your portfolio will realize that you have something really, really special and unique that no one else has. And that's something that UCSC provides, definitely provides. And honestly, just making something polished and beautiful is really what recruiters like to see, but also making something meaningful and impactful. Maybe that's impactful on the environment or in the world or in society. These are all really great things that you can consider when making your games, and all very possible in the context of our school. And I would say, don't feel like you're being challenged by AGPM requirements or if they're shifting or not. Just keep building positively for yourself, seeing things in a positive light, and understanding what is the best way that learning works for me in this context. So yeah, is that helpful? Great. Yeah, great question. So the reason I created my game studio was to practice a professional environment with a small group of people. So I guess it really depends on like you personally. For me, that looks like I'm creating a LinkedIn page for my team, and I'm like posting kind of consistently updates and showing off like really high quality social media posts to say like, hey, here are the new concepts we worked on, and then using very professional language in the captions or copy that we're writing to further iterate that, you know, not only are we creating really high quality material, but we're like showing it off in a really high quality way so that like, well, for part of the team, it's to be hired. Like that's primarily why I built the company, which is so I want to build something where people can be a part of it, find joy in it, build real skills, and get hired. And so that's kind of the company part for me. Like I want to showcase that my folks who are in this company are able to work in a high quality, positive environment that helps develop their growth. Does that kind of answer your question? Okay, yeah.
The question for both of you, how do you balance time between like taking your hardest classes towards the end of college and also having like jobs in game studios, being part of all these clubs, and working on all these things at the same time?
Yeah, so you might have heard when I mentioned that I've been working at Heart Machine for 1.5 years, but I just graduated last year. It's like a bit of overlap there. Yeah, so in 2023, my end of my junior year, I interned at Heart Machine for the summer, and then they wanted to keep me on during the school year, so I worked part-time at that time, and I worked about like 18 hours a week, and it was easier because it was my senior year, and I was taking less classes. The capstone classes are worth more, so you can only take like 2 per quarter, for example. But the answer to like how to balance that is that it's kind of hard. Like you kind of have to make some sacrifices. Like I was definitely like very absorbed in like both work and school to the point where like, you know, I couldn't really like participate in like clubs or anything. But and I think and I could maybe potentially like there was room for me to do that, but I think would have like resulted in me like burning out. So I think just finding like a balance where you know that you're working at a level where you won't like be overwhelmed, and like you're working at like a level that is like healthy for you. So like taking your classes and your hours at work into account, like balancing that so that you know that you won't get burnt out, because getting burnt out, even if I did like go to GDA or something and like do all that stuff, and if I got burnt out and like I spiraled out of everything, that would be like the worst case scenario. So just the fact that you're doing something at all managing that, I think is like the most important thing.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think that was a great answer. I'm still trying to figure this out for myself. I just started like I would say a month ago for my internship, and I'm working a lot of hours. I don't want to disclose how many hours because I don't think it's great. But I would say communicate clearly and effectively with your classmates and your professors who this might be impacting, and potentially even consulting, advising, whether that's your college advisors or HPM advisors or CMPM advisors or whatever advisors are applicable to you to look through like what you're able to do and like support that type of workload. Some ideas might include like asynchronous classes or online classes. For me, for 170 or 171 or capstone specifically, I clearly communicate with my other executive producers like, hey, I'm really busy today and I'm not going to be able to, okay, I'm not going to be able to like commit to this today, but you know, being able to redistribute workload and I would say plan your breaks and yeah, that's all for me.
I just wanted to add, Sam mentioned like contacting your, people in school and stuff to manage that balance is really important. Also, contacting people at work. My producer was always checking in on me when I was working during school to make sure like, oh, are you, are these hours good for you? Are you being overstressed? Are we always adjusting? So just having like an open dialogue there with like whoever, if it's your boss or your producer, whoever is like managing you, having that dialogue open to be able to adjust things, I think is great. Yeah, I think that's all.
Give me 1 second. Okay, so thank you guys so much, and thank you guys for your lovely questions. Can we please get another round of applause for our panel? Right, thank you guys so much. We are now going to move on to Kara and her portfolio workshop. So Kara, can you hear us? Yeah, so we should be sharing window, which means that you should be able to click on. Okay. But if you can't, Ethan's right here to fix it. Okay.
Hi, everyone. We're going to be talking next about portfolios specifically for the game industry. We don't have to do that. And quick introduction, my name is Kara. I use she, her pronouns. I work in the Career Success office. I hold a lot of different responsibilities. I'm the work study coordinator. I am currently managing the Chancellor's undergraduate internship program. If you're familiar with that, it's an internship opportunity available to all of you, and applications are open now. So if you're interested in getting some more experience, definitely check that out. And I also hold meetings with students. We talk about job and internship search. We go over resumes, things like that. And I do want to recognize that there's a lot of passion and enthusiasm in this room today, and that's great to see. Thank you all for being engaged and respectful. And I want to note too that it sounds like it's a really hard time in the game industry. I'm not specific to this world. I'm more of a generalist in terms of career and guidance. And I'm sure if you're asking any of these professionals, people who are working in it now, they're going to let you know that they had some support in getting there. They've had a team of people behind them. They've been getting feedback from folks, and they're not just doing this alone. So I want to plug Career Success as just another resource for you all so that you're not feeling alone in this process. There's a lot of ideas floating around and there's a lot of opportunities coming up. And sometimes it's hard to take all of these ideas and then what do you do afterwards? How do you apply this? Where do you get started? So Career Success, we are really here for you throughout your career journey, no matter where you're at. If you're like, I don't have a resume, I don't have a portfolio yet, I'm not really sure what part of gaming I want to get into, please utilize our services because we'd love to meet with you one-on-one or review your resumes, things like that. So you are not alone in this process, and we want to help you be successful in whatever it is your definition of success is. Okay, let's get into it. So we only have about 30 minutes. It's going to be pretty quick. And just an invitation for you all to take care of your personal needs and be present. So go ahead and use the restroom if you need, grab a snack, anything like that.
It's okay to have a little shuffling around. We're going to be going over why it's important to have a portfolio. What are some best practices in creating a portfolio, and then how to do some next steps. Okay, so question for you all. What is the purpose of a portfolio? And what is the value in having one? Let's start with the first one. What is the purpose of a portfolio? Anyone have any ideas? Yeah.
Showcase your best work in the field that you want to be in, probably.
To showcase your best work in the field that you want to be in, absolutely, definitely. Any other ideas? What's the purpose? Right here.
Documenting your work.
Documenting your work, yeah, absolutely documenting your work. Yeah, documenting it and showing the skills that you have from specific work that you've done. Absolutely, those are all perfect. So what do you think the value then in creating this is? What is it doing for you to show this all? Yes.
To express yourself to the interviewer?
Yeah, express yourself to an interviewer, to have it in one space where you can be like, this is who I am, this is what I bring. Yeah. Yeah, to show what you're capable of. So likely someone who you're going to be interviewing with is going to take a look at this. We're going to be talking today about creating this portfolio specifically for getting a job. And your portfolio is the place to showcase so much about yourself. You are a multifaceted person. There's a lot going on with just you. So how do you express that to someone who doesn't know you at all? Yeah, what do you want to show? You want to show your arts, your skills, your experience, and also your humanity. So that's your passions and what drives you, your values, things like that. So we've come up with 6 steps to create a great digital portfolio. So let's get into them. The first thing you want to do is decide who your target audience is. We're going to go into more detail about all of these, but overview, decide who your target audience is. You want to select your best work. You want to be intentional about your portfolio structure and want to make sure you get into these 2 things. Always have these 2 things. Pay attention to organization. You're going to pick a host site, and then you're going to get started. And this is going to be a living, breathing portfolio. So that means that it's not just a one and done. You're going to come back, you're going to revisit it, you're going to make updates. You're going to continuously do this because you are continuing to develop and you want to show that. Okay, so who is your target audience? There might be some different target audiences as you move forward, but today we're talking about specifically for a certain job or getting an internship. You might be doing this for a class. You might want to be getting into graduate school. So those are other things to consider, but today I'm going to focus on employment. So when you're doing that, make sure you're thinking about, what does an employer want to see? What are the skills and the values that I can show a specific employer that might not be relevant to, if say it's a professor that you've been doing this for, or a graduate school application. So always be keeping that in mind. You'll have one portfolio typically, so just as you're updating this, know that who is it exactly for. All right, so you want to be showing your best work, right? You don't need to include every single thing you've ever done, anything you've ever driven, any game that you've developed. But when you're thinking about what to include, these are 4 things that are going to be helpful. So the quality, what projects are you most proud of? Have you gotten positive feedback about certain things? What have you enjoyed doing? If you made a game that you really didn't like and you're just like, ugh, yikes, never want to look at that again. If you can't be proud of it and show it off, then that's not something you'll want to include. Make sure that if you're including it on your site, that there's really high quality, right? If it's low resolution, that's not going to be showing off just like how awesome this is. So double check that. If you're embedding things like audio and video, make sure it works, right? That would be kind of embarrassing if these things aren't working. So make sure that there's quality in what you're including. Versatility is going to be important too. So you want to show off that you have a lot of different skills, that maybe you have quite a few different styles. I think I've heard a few of the people talking today saying that maybe you do want to be a little bit more catered to a certain job that you're applying for, right? So if you were doing like the League of Legends, if you're applying to that, maybe you're going to make something League, sorry, just no one called League of Legends. Um, Coming back. Okay. So maybe creating something new to share specific for that if you are going to be applying for a certain job. Relevance, again, this is going to be for an employer. That's what we're talking about, right? So that kind of goes along with that versatility that I mentioned, making sure that the most relevant artwork that you've done is going to be updated on your portfolio. And quantity. So depending on where you're at in your career, this is going to look a little bit different. If you're just beginning, it's okay to have 5, maybe 10 pieces of art. You don't have to just like fill up a website to do it. And then as you gain more experience and you've worked on more things, that's when you're updating it, right? And you're including different things. So as a beginner, think of 5 to 10, but as you're getting more experienced, 15 to 20 feels like a good number. Okay, so intentionality around your structure. We're talking about now navigating. You always want to make sure that you're including these 2 things. So your artwork or your relevant games that you've created, and then an About Me page. So definitely highlight who you are, what's driven you to, oh, actually, I think I have slides for these. Okay, your artwork. So in the work that you've done, you want to label and describe each item. So if this is a game, you're talking about the title, the medium that you've used, what have you used to develop this, highlighting everything that you've done for this. What is it like in the start, middle, and the end process and the work that you've put in? You can also include projects that you've collaborated on in your specific role. So you don't have to necessarily be the developer. I think someone was mentioning that they are more on like concept. That's totally fine. And just be sure to label what exactly you were doing for that specific job. You can still include that as your experience. Then we have your About Me. So if you have an artist statement, that's going to be really powerful, showing your approach and your perspective about your art. So it really is a creative thing, right? I have talked with a few of you about resumes, maybe a little bit more rigid. This is where you can start being a lot more creative. So how you want to tell your story and how you want to share more about yourself is up to you, but you'll want to have some of those like key things, including your resume and your contact info. Linking to other sites can be important too. So LinkedIn is pretty standard now within most industries. So again, including links, making sure those links work, that is important for this section. Contact info, can't emphasize that enough. How is someone going to get in touch with you? Someone mentioned, do I have to put my phone number on there? No, you do not have to put your phone number on the internet for everyone to access, but an email is great. You'll definitely want to include an email. Okay, so look, organization. You want to have excellent organization in this regard. So clean, attractive, easy to navigate. User experience is something you really want to have top of mind for this because that's going to show and say a lot about you as well. So on your homepage, you're going to want to make sure you have a really clear navigation menu, and you don't want to overwhelm the person looking at your portfolio. So usually it's going to be like at the top, you're going to have your navigation bar, probably your About You, showing your artwork. If you'd like to have another section, again, you can get creative with this, but you don't want to have too much on there. People should know exactly where to go and what they'll get from that page. We love some negative space too, some white space. You don't have to just like cram stuff in on your webpage. So just visually pleasing, right? And again, those clear categories, if you're doing different types of art or what your projects are, having that spelled out pretty clearly. Making it mobile friendly is a great tip too. Be thinking about that when you're doing your design because you never know when this person, maybe, we've talked about elevator pitches too. Maybe you've just met this person in the elevator and they're going to check it out. So they're going to look at it. It's top of mind. You don't know. Okay. Then you're going to get started. Getting started is the hardest part. You want to pick a good site. So these are just some examples. Maybe your peers have some other ideas too. ArtStation, Google Sites, and Wix. Yeah, get started. And then we are updating this regularly, as we've mentioned, because you're advancing in your skills and you don't know when someone's going to be looking at it. So it's best to do this as you're working on a project or after you've just finished it because it's top of mind and it's going to be like the most relevant to you. So that's the best time to be doing something as you're working on it or if you've recently completed it. Because again, you never know when someone's going to look at it. It can be pretty spontaneous, especially if you just are meeting the right person randomly. Some just advice on like how to be more organized around this. You all do have access to Google Calendar through UCSC email. So if that's putting in a reminder in your calendar for after every quarter when you've finished with some of your class projects, do that. And just keep uploading it as soon as it's done. Okay, I think I'm going to get into this a little bit later, but actually, yeah. Okay, I want to talk about feedback too really quick before we start looking at some specific folders. So getting feedback is critical for this. Why do you think we get feedback? Why do you think it's important to ask for feedback? Yeah. Yeah, an unbiased tie so you can continue to improve. I think a lot of us have some blind spots on either like we think this one thing is super awesome that we've done, and we just think it's the best, but maybe other people don't perceive it that way. So it's good to be asking for feedback, even just how we present materials. Is it easy to understand? We just can't always have that great self-reflection, unfortunately. So getting feedback as you're developing your portfolio is going to be critical. So you don't have to just do it when you're done too, or when you think you're done. It's good to start getting feedback when you think you're maybe about 25% done. So maybe you've just started with a little bit of design, and you've included a little bit of information. That's a great time to get feedback. Is this visually pleasing? Does my navigation bar make sense? At 50% of the way, maybe you've started to include some materials. That's a great time to ask for feedback. And even when you're 90% there, you think you've done everything, that's another great time to ask for feedback, just to make sure it makes sense. There's a lot of different people you can ask for feedback too. So there are some professional people who do this, like Career Success, some of these great people that are in the industry already. Those are people that you can ask. But that's maybe not the most accessible for you at that moment. So your peers are also super valuable. All of you in this room are interested in this industry. You're working on things. So using your peers as people to receive feedback from is also going to be great. But even people who are outside of this world in gaming, maybe that's family or friends that you have, asking them to look over it because they are going to have like, maybe they don't know all the acronyms and they're like, wait, what does this mean? Like, I don't get it. That's going to be valuable too, because you should assume, I mean, likely someone in the industry is going to be looking at this, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's someone from a parallel industry, or maybe you just want to show it off for someone to learn more about you. It should be legible and understandable by general people as well. Okay, I am going to go back and show you some examples of really awesome portfolios that other folks have made. And we'll kind of get more of a sense. If you're just starting out and you don't have a portfolio, we can start getting some inspiration. So this is someone in the industry already. At the top, let's see, I'm going to move this. At the top here, you can see a great navigation bar. So let's get into the portfolio and about. This person has some speaking experience and how to get a hold of them. So we can see some of their specific style coming through on this page. This portfolio section is clearly labeled. This About Me button is clear. And now we can click into these different sections to learn more about their specific artwork. So some of these images I'm even recognizing. So let's get into this a little bit. They're going to talk about their specific experience working on Hyperlight Breaker. An overview of this game. Looks like you can even link to more about this game. As we go down, they're talking about what they've done and who else has collaborated on this project. So who was the senior director, who was the art associate? Rachel, who's this person that we're looking at, they did marketing design. So they've clearly identified what their role was. And they've gone into just such great detail here. So the style guide, just a lot of details about the project. Again, there's like going on and naming different folks, some of the key art that's been a part of this. So that's a lot of detail. Maybe you don't have that much information to share at this point, but this is just a way that you can include this. Look at the bottom here, their socials. You can connect with them in that way. So this is really easy to navigate. We can get into their different sections. Let's go into an about. So picture of who they are. Yeah, more about the experience that they have, where they've worked. This is kind of just like the summary in one easily accessible spot, what the work that they've done is. What they like to do in their free time, that's great too. We want to know more about you as that holistic person, right? And so this is kind of like a living resume too. You can have a link to your resume if you'd like, or if you'd like to format it in a fun way, you are welcome to do that. So certain skills, tools that they've used, and again, just more of their accolades, which is awesome. So that's an example. Let's go into another one too. So different style that we have here for Hayden. You know, this is more interactive in the background, which is cool. Things are floating by. We got a nom here at the top. So this is who they are. Okay, they have a game. We can play now. That's right at the top. Awesome. But again, we're seeing at the top this nav bar, home, games, about, contact. It's gonna be pretty typical. Those are the things that you'll want to have. So they got just on their homepage, how easy is it to click into these different sections? Certain things that they've worked on. So you can continue to look at different portfolios. I'm actually not sure. I took this presentation over from a coworker, so I'm not sure how she found these exactly, but probably LinkedIn people are showing these. I'm sure you can just do some Google searches too. But if you're just not even sure where to start, keep looking into different portfolios and draw inspiration and feel it out. What would feel best for you? Okay, so they're games, they're about. Who is this guy? This person has a little bit more of like a laid back approach. You can totally do that. This is your style, right? You're able to be creative with this. Telling more about them. Get in touch. Let's check out one more because again, you can have different styles. So we have a few UCSC alum here, which is awesome. Yeah. Okay. Just go through this again. Different things that you can click over pretty easily. So here we're just seeing maybe some of the art and then you can scroll over it and see more information. And the clear nav bar. Hobby, what's that? So you can learn a lot more about this. So as you're looking at this too, kind of think about, okay, if I was someone interested in hiring this person, like you're able to start thinking about it and you can give some critical feedback, right? It's just to you. So be thinking about what's working, what's missing, and use that information to help you as you are creating these. Okay. So all of you here, I'm sure, have some work that you can do on your portfolio, right? Because you're still in classes. Maybe it's really you're just starting from the beginning, or maybe you're just like continuing to develop it. But I'd like you all to take a few minutes and start thinking about what your next steps are. Talk to someone next to you if you're not sure where to start. Again, these people in this room are part of your network, and they're going to be very helpful in getting critical feedback. I know it's hard to get feedback sometimes that's not always positive, and it's ways that you can improve, but that is a huge skill to have, is asking for feedback and conscientiously giving feedback too. So start thinking about what are the most important next steps? What do I need to do? What is a realistic timeline? Be real with yourselves, your students, your family members, your individuals. So I'm not saying you have to have this done tomorrow, right? Seems like a lifetime thing to be building. So what is realistic? Start small. You don't have to have 100% right away, but maybe it's just getting to 25%. And again, you have Google Calendar, so utilize that as a tool. If you need reminders, if you need a little bit of accountability, I think it's a good way to do it. So go ahead, take a couple minutes, talk to the people next to you. What do you feel like the next steps you need to take are?
Like saying more thoughts. Like everybody. Yeah, a lot of it is still works. Yeah, it's. I don't even know. Not right now. I think it's just maybe. Honestly, I'm just thinking. Right now, I've got that big strap, so it's staying there. Just make a way to the. Yeah, I just
Okay, everyone, thank you for chatting with your peers, maybe setting some accountability for yourself and deciding to put some work into this. It is work. It's hard to get a job. It is hard to sometimes talk about yourself and highlight who you are. Another piece of advice, if it's resumes, if it's cover letters, anything with the interview process, is be bold and proud of all of the work that you have done and all the effort that you have put in to get to where you are right now. It is not easy, and likely you've done a lot more than you think you have. I know that I can be shy about like talking about my accomplishments and things like that. So that's again when it's nice to get feedback and hear someone else say great things about you. Sometimes you just gotta ask, like, hey, what am I good at? Someone will tell you. So yes, it is a process. Career success resources. We have quite a few for you. These slides are going to be distributed, so you will have access to them. Holly, who is the career engagement specialist who works specifically with art and humanities, you're welcome to meet with her. She created this awesome portfolio development handout, so if you'd like to scan that QR code, you can. Oh, sorry, let me just give you another second for that. And then you can access career success on our website. It's careers.ucsc.edu. There's a section where we have resources, and that's where you can access a lot of our stuff: cover letter, resume, interview prep, handshake how-tos, handshakes how we're looking for jobs and things like that. So just I encourage you to utilize this. It's never too early, and it's also not too late. Even if you're graduating soon, you have access to Career Success for 2 years after you graduate. So that's meeting with our career engagement team one-on-one. We do all sorts of different stuff. I'll stop talking. Again, I'm not the expert in portfolios by any means. I'm happy to answer some of your questions. I'll open that up right now. But I might even like turn it back on you and see what information you would want to share, since you're probably in this world more than I am. So we have a few, maybe 1 minute for questions. Yes. Oh, sorry, in the green. Oh, sorry. I'll try to get that resource then over to you. Yeah. Were there any other questions? Oh, yes, right in front of me.
Hi. I wanted to make a portfolio to show off like my programming skills. What would I put on like
Okay, the question is, if you're a programmer and maybe not so much doing the art development, what can you put on a portfolio? Any projects that you've worked on that you can display would be great. So what are the things that you've worked on?
I've worked on like certain like cell shading or rendering pipelines. I've also worked on more on game mechanics. So for example, like for first person shooters like wall running or sliding, stuff like that.
Yeah, great. So even if you haven't been the one like directly doing the art, you can still showcase that project on your portfolio. And in one of them, we looked at like listing out people who did what on each game or project. Just make sure to include what exactly you did, and then go into more detail about how you did that, why it was important, and what it contributed to for the overall game. Okay, I'm gonna end it there and hand it over to Emily. Just reminding me I need to update my portfolio, guys. Oh my gosh. So now we're on to a new next part. It's the resume and portfolio reviews. So on my wait, actually. Okay, so we're split in portfolio reviews and resume reviews. So over here we have Little Pond Studios with Alexa and Mandy. Give a little wave. Alexa is doing portfolio reviews for art and design, and Mandy is doing portfolio reviews for art. Over there, if you can raise your hand, we got Jared and Sai. Jared is looking over programming, design, and sound, and Sai is looking over art and production portfolios. So if you brought a portfolio and you wanted to get it checked out, you should go on this side of the room. However, if you're interested in resume reviews, over there we got Hornet Games, which is our lovely Career Success who just spoke. So yippee! You can bring your resume over to them, and they have a cool checklist, and they can like talk to you and whatnot. And over there, Wavelength Studios, if you want to raise your hand, I'm also there. We got Dylan, Ivy, me, and Jonah, and we're also checking over resumes. So if you brought it, that'd be really cool. So as a little reminder, I have these arrows pointing to where they're going. And if you didn't bring a resume or a portfolio, you feel free to still talk to us. But also, we also have 308, 2 floors above us, which is kind of like a game space. You can hang out, relax. I think we're playing Jackbox up there. We're playing Jackbox. So if you're like, oh man, I'm kind of tired out, go play Jackbox. You can hang out here, whatever works for you. So yeah, I'll let you guys disperse. Resumes that way, portfolios this way.